Having set her sights on the wooden doll, she implored the heir of Guanyang Marquis to assist her in winning it. However, it turned out that the daughter of General Wu had also taken a fancy to the same prize. Thus, these two young ladies must surely contend for the sake of the younger sister, wouldn't they? The crowd expressed their astonishment, realizing the situation. But was it not rather peculiar that these two young women possessed such unusual tastes? What treasures did their families lack? It was indeed amusing that they both coveted such a commonplace trinket, enough to vie for it. The commotion from the archery range soon reached the ears of the matron of the Du family. Dressed in a spirited manner, with a polo mallet in hand, the Du matron casually rested the mallet upon her shoulder upon hearing the news. Is that so? How rare indeed! Not only has the young General Wu not mentioned it, but Qin Gu, whom I have invited several times, has never accepted until now. And he has not only come, but has also engaged in competition? She handed the polo mallet to a servant beside her. Let us go and take a look. It was not only the Du matron who showed interest. Other ladies present were equally intrigued upon hearing the news. Both the young General Wu and the heir of Guanyang Marquis were unmarried, and although they hailed from distinguished martial families, they were destined for promising futures. Particularly the heir of Guanyang Marquis, who would eventually inherit his title. He was not only handsome, but, aside from his somewhat aloof demeanor, there was little to fault him on. The archery range grew increasingly crowded, and by the time Wu Wei retrieved his bow and arrows, there was scarcely a space left to stand. A sheen of perspiration formed on Wu Wei's forehead. How had it come to this? After all, was it truly reasonable to cause such a stir over a mere wooden doll? Brother, you must perform admirably and not yield to him simply because he is a marquis heir. Our family is not substantially inferior to that of Guanyang Marquis. Wu Wei sighed. Swear, do refrain from speaking further when we return. Father will surely reprimand you for this. I am not afraid, she retorted boldly. Wu Shuehua held her head high, casting a sidelong glance at Qin Shu. Chapter 44. A favorable omen. Qin Shu huffed, wrapping her arms around Xinluan. Brother, you must defend our honor. If that doll ends up in Wu Zhehua's hands, I shall ignore you. With the bow and arrows in hand, Qin Gu chuckled softly at her words. Then I shall enjoy a period of peace. Brother, Xinluan found herself amused by Qin Shu's outburst, prompting Qin Shu to turn and address her. Luan, you must encourage my brother. We cannot afford to falter in spirit. Xinluan was taken aback, raising her eyes to meet Qin Gu's gaze, only to find him looking back, as if awaiting her encouragement. May the Marquis heir achieve victory? She stammered. Qin Gu slightly tilted his head. You and Shu Shu share a sisterly bond, so there is no need for such formalities. Simply call me Qin Gu, as Shu Shu does. Xinluan's heart fluttered. Was he being serious? She scrutinized Qin Gu for a moment, noticing his gaze was unguarded, devoid of any ulterior motives. Could it be that she was overthinking it? Indeed, they had had little interaction thus far, and he had not overstepped, most likely viewing her merely as a friend of his sister. Qin Shu clapped her hands. Brother is right. I too feel that Luan and you are too distant even with me. You seem somewhat estranged. However, brother, if Luan addresses you thus, you must look after her more in the future. Xinluan tugged at Qin Shu's sleeve, to which Qin Shu turned, puzzled. What is it? Brother truly is quite admirable. Do you not often praise him? Suddenly, Xinluan's face flushed crimson. What was wrong with Qin Shu today? She could scarcely bear to look at Qin Gu, wishing for the ground beneath her to open up and swallow her whole. Noticing her discomfort, Qin Gu intended to seize the opportunity to inquire what she had praised him for, yet he feared complicating matters further. Thus, he suppressed his emotions and feigned ignorance of Xinluan's awkwardness. Very well, I shall do my utmost. Qin Gu waved goodbye to them, and Qin Shu exclaimed loudly, Brother shall surely triumph. She pulled at Xinluan again, who felt on the verge of tears but dared not exacerbate her own embarrassment, forcing a smile instead. May Qin Gu's wishes be fulfilled. Qin Gu's expression brightened, a gentle smile gracing his features. I shall take that as a good omen. At last they departed. As Shun Luan was pulled aside by Qin Shu, she noticed her legs felt somewhat weak. It was as if she had just endured a fierce battle, fraught with peril. Once the warmth on her cheeks subsided, she glanced at Qin Gu, who stood tall amidst the crowd. Even though her heart brimmed with resentment, she could not suppress the inexplicable feelings that began to surface. Shun Luan discreetly pinched her own hand, urging herself to remain calm. He currently regarded her merely as a sister, so why was she being so ineffectual? Qin Shu, my dear, there you are. Both Qin Shu and Shun Luan rose to greet the approaching matron of the Du family. Enough, there is no need for such formalities. Where is your brother? The Du matron waved her hand dismissively. Qin Shu pointed toward Qin Guest's location. The Du matron squinted for a moment before breaking into a cheerful smile. I hear your brother is to spar with the young General Wu? How extraordinary! I wonder what prompted this? Without hesitation, Qin Shu replied, all for a wooden doll. Miss Wu insists on competing with me for it. Ultimately, whoever wins shall claim it. A wooden doll? The Du matron's excitement momentarily waned. Was it truly for a little girl? For a mere doll? Being quite familiar with the Du matron, Qin Shu recounted the events, her indignation palpable as she insisted that she had laid eyes on it first. Meanwhile, the Du matron's gaze subtly shifted to the side, resting on Shun Luan.
Chapter 45. For the sake of a doll, the only daughter of the Shun family's third branch, Shun Qing, had long been the subject of whispers among the ladies of the Du family. Shen Yuanxiu's former grace and charm were widely celebrated in Yin City. After his untimely demise in the line of duty, the emperor showered special favor upon the Shen family, bestowing honors upon Shen Yuanxiu posthumously, thereby solidifying the Shen family's standing in Yin City. Consequently, at any banquet in Yin City, the third branch's presence was an inevitable requirement. However, the Du family matron had little personal acquaintance with Shen Luan, having only heard that she was a modest, shy, and somewhat timid young woman. Yet upon meeting her today, the impression was not entirely as expected. While conversing with Qin Shu, Shun Luan exhibited no discomfort whatsoever. Standing with calm grace by her side, her posture as upright as a delicate orchid, captivating and lively, impossible to overlook. This indeed, Miss Shin San. I must say, this is my first encounter with you. Shun Luan greeted the Du matron with a respectful bow, her demeanor impeccable and poised. It was my oversight not to have paid my respects to you earlier. I hope you will not take offense. How could I? I have a fondness for charming young ladies like yourself. Had I known you were so exquisitely beautiful, I would not have waited until now to meet you. Shun Luan found the Du matron's words amusing. Stifling a light laugh, her gaze clear and unpretentious, devoid of any bashfulness, as the doll in your hands, not the very reason for today's gathering? Shun Luan instinctively looked down, suddenly realizing she was still holding the doll. The Du matron smiled and inquired, might I take a look? Without a moment's hesitation, Shun Luan extended the doll to her. It is indeed a finely crafted doll. The Du matron found little to commend, as it was merely an ordinary wooden doll, and the wood used for its carving was not particularly rare. Besides its delicacy, she struggled to find further praise. Yet, for such a doll to incite a competition among the likes of Qin Gu, it must indeed hold some special significance beyond its appearance. The Du matron's peripheral gaze subtly assessed Shun Luan, concluding that if the doll could captivate Shen San, it was entirely reasonable for others to be moved by it as well. Returning the doll to Shun Luan, the Du matron settled herself comfortably, casually asking, whom do you believe will emerge victorious? Of course, it will be my brother. If he does not win, I shall surely inform father, and he will be punished. Qin Shu scrunched her nose, her small fist waving lightly in the air. The Du matron turned her head, and what of Miss Shun San? Shun Luan pondered for a moment. I cannot say. Either could triumph. Luan, how can you bolster another's confidence while diminishing your own? My brother cannot possibly lose. Shun Luan genuinely wished to remind her that she had just suggested she would report him if he lost. I certainly hope your brother will win. Shun Luan consoled her with good humor, smoothing over Qin Shu's ruffled spirits. The Du matron found their interaction delightful, as the competition had already commenced. With a competition at hand, it was only fitting that the rules be established. Each participant would shoot a total of 10 arrows, and the final scores would clearly reveal the victor. Qinggu pulled back his bowstring. Brother Wu, would you prefer to go first or second? I shall go first, Wu Wei replied as he approached, disliking any potential influence on his performance that might arise from Qin Ji's unexpected results. Qinggu gestured for him to proceed, indifferent to the order. Meanwhile, Qin Shu outside was exasperated. What is my brother doing? Can't he at least intimidate him first? It's utterly foolish. Chapter 46. What do you mean? As Shun Luan patted Qin Shu's back, she inwardly mused that perhaps only Shu Shu would dare to call Qinggu foolish. Wu Wei's archery skills were indeed commendable. From a distance, they watched as each arrow seemed to strike the target with precision. With each shot, Qin Shu tightened her grip on Shun Luan's hand, and by the end, Shun Luan had to sigh and rescue her hand from the little girl's grasp. Alwan, what shall we do? My brother cannot truly be losing, can he? I never anticipated that Wu Shuahua's brother would possess such talent. Qin Shu's brows furrowed in distress. What if she wins that doll? I will be the subject of her ridicule. But it is merely a doll. That is not the point. I feel it resembles you, and I wish for my brother to win it for you. Shin Luan nearly choked, carefully articulating, how does that doll resemble me? It looks very much like you. It is evident at first glance. Hearing this, the Du matron's curiosity piqued, and she promptly instructed a servant to fetch the doll. It was another large-headed doll. Equally endearing, adorned with jewels and dressed in vibrant red, its hands clasped together in a delightful manner. Its round face featured large, bright eyes, giving it a charming appearance. The Du matron examined it for a moment, nodding gently, as if it bore some resemblance to Shun San. Shun Luan felt as if she might kneel in embarrassment. Was the Du matron implying she was plump? Where was the resemblance? She could only manage an awkward smile, fervently wishing for the conversation to shift. Fortunately, Wu Wei had completed his turn, and it was now Qin Ji's turn. Qin Shu's attention instantly shifted. Shun Luan's gaze fell upon Qinggu, recalling that in her previous life, she had never meticulously observed him this closely. After all, as the brother of her best friend, it had been rather inappropriate to stare at this moment. However, Qinggu's figure crystallized in Shun Luan's mind. He was tall, his physique striking, shoulders broad and level, always maintaining an upright posture, exuding a raw, unrefined sharpness, akin to a sword waiting to be unsheathed. He stood firmly, drawing back the bowstring with power. His hands gripped the bow tightly. Shun Luan felt flustered, quickly averting her gaze, striving to steady her breath. She simply could not bear to meet his gaze. Even a fleeting glance ignited a rush of warmth, her heart racing, rendering her composure elusive. The arrow in Qin Ji's hand was released, slicing through the air with a heavy thud upon hitting the target. Without a moment's pause, he nocked the next arrow, smoothly drawing and releasing it in one fluid motion, like flowing water. Shun Luan felt as though she were entranced, her focus solely on Qin Ji's movements as he retrieved arrows, drew the bow, and released. The sound of arrows whistling through the air, followed by the dull thud of the arrows hitting the target, sent tremors through her heart, each impact reverberating with a lingering thrill. My brother. Is he that hasty? Surely he is not giving up. Did you not have faith in him? Perhaps he is simply confident. Could he not take it more seriously? Qin Shu was on the verge of panic, suspecting that Qinggu was merely showing off for an audience. What about my doll? If he carelessly loses it, he and I will have unfinished business. Shin Luan comforted her while silently wishing for the doll's defeat to be just as acceptable. Chapter 47. Is that so? Once Qinggu had completed his 10 shots, the target was raised before them, and the scores were tallied in their presence. Qin Shu craned her neck eagerly. What is the outcome? Did we win? The Du matron teased her, so impatient. Why not approach to see for yourself? Taking her suggestion to heart, Qin Shu could hardly contain herself, dashing towards the center of the field, not forgetting to drag along a reluctant Shin Luan. Brother! Qin Shu reached the front just in time to hear Wu Wei's words. I concede gracefully. Instantly, Qin Shu felt a wave of relief wash over her. Brother, you won, right? Qinggu turned with a smile, his gaze drifting past Qin Shu's jubilant face to rest on the slightly breathless Shin Luan. Being pulled along by Qin Shu, Shin Luan found her breaths coming in quick bursts, her cheeks flushed more than usual. Strands of hair had fallen beside her face, enhancing her vitality and beauty, I knew my brother was the best. Qin Shu could hardly wait to retrieve her prize and flaunt it to Wu Shuehua. This time, she did not drag Shen Luan along but dashed off alone. Shen Luan took a moment to steady her breath, hearing Qin Ji's voice beside her. I and my family, Shu Shu is the only girl, and thus she has been somewhat spoiled. I am grateful that you genuinely wish to befriend her. Shu Shu is a wonderful friend. It is my honor to befriend her, but do not speak of this in her presence, or she will surely become unbearably proud. When Qin Gu spoke to Shen Luan, his tone was low yet gentle, matching her pace as they walked towards the edge of the field. They made quite the pair, one tall and imposing, the other slender and delicate, garnering many curious gazes. Shen Luan felt a wave of embarrassment. She had no intention of walking alongside Qin Gu, yet the scrutiny was overwhelming. Could Shu Shu not wait a moment before confronting Wu Shuehua? The girl will not vanish. Is that not Luan Air? Knowing her close ties with the Shen family, it is surprising to see her so intimate with the heir of the Guangyang Marquis. Madame Yu, the matriarch of the Shen family, watched thoughtfully, while Shen Yu whispered, Sister San often visits the Guangyang Marquis' residence. It is only natural they would become acquainted. She even brought sweet soup to the heir previously. Is that so? Madame Yu frowned slightly. Such a matter is significant. How could she act so recklessly? If it were to disrupt Jian's studies, how could I bear the responsibility? Upon my return, I shall have a thorough discussion with my lord. Shen Yu lowered her head, her gaze fixed on the distant Shen Luan. She, too, had garnered some attention, though it was merely by associating with Qin Shu and the heir of the Guangyang Marquis. Shen Yu pursed her lips in thought, pondering how delightful it would be if she were in that position. She yearned to be the center of attention, to bask in the admiration of the masses. Such an experience must be indescribably exquisite. Alas, it seems fortune has favored Shen Luan. As Shen Luan and Qin Gu located Qin Shu, Wu Shuehua beside her appeared utterly pale with indignation. Has Miss Qin never encountered anything of value? What is there to boast about in possessing such a doll? It is hardly a rare treasure. Qin Shu, however, wore a radiant expression, exclaiming, I am simply delighted. Though it may not be a precious artifact, there are those who desire it yet cannot attain it. Shouldn't I cherish it? Madame Du found the banter between the two young ladies amusing and stepped in to mediate. All right. You young ladies are quite relentless. This reminds me of my own youthful days. Upon catching sight of Qin Gu, her smile deepened. Have you enjoyed yourself today, my lord? It is rare to witness you engage earnestly in a contest. They say the Guangyang Marquis dotes on his daughter, and today, it seems, that is indeed the case. Qin Gu resumed his usual demeanor, polite yet distant, as if an invisible barrier separated him from others. Madame Du sighed inwardly, recognizing the sharpness of her own perception. Just moments ago, his expression towards the third young lady of the Shen family had been markedly different. Having witnessed the lively archery contest, Shen Luan was likely unaware of the significant shift in her reputation among the onlookers. At that moment, her only concern was how to deal with the doll in her hands. Qin Shu, proudly cradling the girl doll, seemed to believe it was a golden prize won from Wu Shuehua. One for each of us is just perfect. While I may not have won it myself, my brother is family, so the sentiment remains the same. Shu Shu, why not take it home and make it a pair? Why? Don't you want one for yourself? Shen Luan found herself at a loss for words. Would it be acceptable for her to claim the girl doll? My lady, the madam requests your presence, Xian whispered in her ear. Upon hearing this, Shen Luan had no choice but to relent. And why mother is looking for me. I must go see her first. If you find yourself free, do seek me out. We shall go to the lakeside to fly kites. Very well. Shen Luan hastened to join Jian Shi, only to find that the lady conversing with Jian Shi had changed once more. Yet they remained as warm and cordial as ever. Her own stepmother was indeed remarkable. Mother, come meet these ladies. We were just speaking of you, and they have forgotten what you look like. Shen Luan gracefully saluted, greeting each guest introduced by Jian Shi with composure and an air of gentility. One lady, covering her mouth with a soft laugh, remarked, with such praise, if I had a daughter as charming as yours, I would certainly make everyone envious. Shen Luan was taken aback. Her relationship with Jian Shi was well known in Yin City. How could her mother encourage them to overlook past grievances and laud their bond? Jian Shi subtly raised an eyebrow at Shen Luan, conveying that as long as she was willing, nothing was impossible in the realm of social interactions. Mother is truly impressive. Shen Luan accompanied Jian Shi, engaging in conversation, choosing her words carefully. Whenever she was mentioned, her responses were always pleasing, endearing her to those around her. In truth, she was quietly studying Jean Shu's demeanor, realizing that her mother had summoned her with this intention in mind. After observing for a while, Shen Luan grew increasingly in awe of Jean Shu. Perhaps some phrases held multiple meanings, yet Jean Shu could effortlessly untangle them, responding with grace and maintaining a light atmosphere. Her enthusiasm was warm but not overwhelming, her tone buoyant yet calm, and her responses were often substantial, like a refreshing breeze, making it easy for others to listen. This was exceedingly beneficial for Shen Luan. Thus, she settled into a mindset of careful observation, mentally jotting down notes on how she might respond differently in various scenarios. Jian Shu, noticing Shen Luan's understanding of her intentions, felt a surge of satisfaction. Look, what a clever daughter I've raised. After a while, Jian Shu sensed it was time to let Shen Luan have a break. It must be tiring to converse with us. You should take the opportunity to enjoy yourself. We heard there were competitions at the archery range. Did you go to see them? Shen Luan chuckled inwardly. Not only had she watched, but she had witnessed the entire event. Young people should be spirited. Go and have fun. Shen Luan had learned a great deal and truly wished to process her newfound knowledge. Unexpectedly, on her way to find Qin Shu, she encountered Xin Yu. Third sister, I finally found you. Xin Yu approached warmly, her gaze flickering over Shen Luan's attire, a hint of jealousy flashing in her eyes. Such fine garments and exquisite accessories. If only I could wear such splendid attire. Why is the fourth sister not by the side of our second aunt? Is it not because I am worried about you, third sister? In times past, I would always accompany you, but not seeing you today has left me anxious, fearing you might be mistreated. Thus, I hurried to find you. Xin Yu's face was filled with concern. But has anyone spoken ill of you, third sister? Do not take it to heart. Your lineage is beyond your control. Rest assured, fourth sister, no one would dare speak ill of me. I am the recognized legitimate daughter of the Shin family. Should they gossip, it would be a disrespect to our house. However, fourth sister, it seems most of those in attendance today are legitimate offspring. Do you feel out of place? Xin Yu appeared as if struck by a blade, feeling the shame and hatred of being exposed in broad daylight. Yet Shen Luan seemed oblivious, her worry genuine. As if fearful that someone might insult her. You need not concern yourself. I am well aware of your character, fourth sister, how understanding and gentle you are, as long as one disregards your background. They will undoubtedly appreciate you, I am certain of it. Shen Yu felt as if her throat had been seized, struggling to utter a few words. Thank you for your concern, third sister, I am unbothered. That is splendid news. Shen Luan's smile was innocent and carefree, reminiscent of the days when she relied on Xin Yu wholeheartedly. It is truly a pity that only I recognize the virtues of the fourth sister. Alas, if only you were a legitimate daughter. I often observe the tension between second sister and you, and my heart aches for your plight. This is simply my fate, but I find it unjust for you. Fourth sister, you are so gentle and kind. Who could fail to commend your character? Shen Luan concealed the depth of her meaning. Today, she realized the vast difference between legitimate and illegitimate status, feeling sympathy for her sister. Xin Yu, who held her aspirations high, could never accept her status as a concubine's daughter. Once her heart was pricked, she would lose all composure. Indeed, the emotions in Shen Yu's eyes were becoming increasingly difficult to conceal. The gathering at Madame Du's was indeed entertaining, where both men and women mingled freely, without regard for each other as status. I even participated in the archery contest and received a few compliments. Shen Luan's eyes brightened suddenly. Fourth sister, you are always so clever. If you had been there, you would have surely outdone me. Xin Yu bit her lip gently. Where is third sister headed now? Are you going back to shoot arrows? I am going to find Shu Shu. She wishes to fly kites with me by the lake. Many young ladies are gathered there, creating quite the lively scene. With only young ladies present, it is certain that no young men will appear. Moreover, with so many girls around, idle chatter will abound. Many are particularly sensitive regarding lineage and attire, and I instinctively hesitate to join. You wish to find the Qin lady? She slowed her pace, her tone wavering. Third sister has developed a friendship with the Qin lady, but for some reason, she seems to harbor a misunderstanding towards me. I cannot argue with her, nor do I wish to cause you any trouble. Xin Yu's eyes brimmed with grievance, yet she forced a smile. In that case, I shall not accompany you. I only wish for you to enjoy yourself. Your consideration for me moves my heart, fourth sister. Shun Luan feigned reluctance, turning away while maintaining a brisk pace. Did they not prepare swallow kites in the carriage? Someone should fetch them. Such splendid weather would be wasted if we do not fly kites. Zian seemed to snap back to reality, promptly instructing a young maid to retrieve the kites. Miss, what is your relationship with fourth miss? Shun Luan turned her head with a smile. What of it? How I treat her in the past shall reflect how I treat her in the future. Reciprocity is the guiding principle of the Shin family, is it not? Zian swallowed hard, deciding not to pursue the matter further. Though she felt reassured that Shin Luan would not be deceived by fourth miss. Shin Luan found Qin Shu waiting by the lakeside. Look, I even prepared a kite for you, a butterfly one. Do you like it? The butterfly kite is exquisitely vibrant, with its large wings adorned in striking colors, reminiscent of the style once favored by Shin Luan, who has always preferred such delicate beauty. Yet now, Shin Luan has long lost interest in such frail wonders. A gentle grip in the palm could shatter it to pieces. Its alluring exterior draws admiration, yet it is incapable of even protecting itself. She took the swallow kite from Ziyin, stating she had prepared her own, although it had been some time since she last flew one, and she was uncertain if it could still soar the skies. The two of them eagerly began to fly their kites. Most young ladies engaged in kite flying merely for amusement, allowing their maids to send them aloft before retrieving them. However, Qin Shu and Shin Luan were different. They cherished the sensation of launching the kites themselves. Thus, in that vast expanse, it was merely the two of them, laughing and frolicking, undeterred by the repeated descents of their kites, joyfully picking them up to start anew. Qin Shu, hailing from the Qin family, was accustomed to a carefree demeanor, but it was the first time Shin Luan had joined her in such revelry, having only observed her in the past. When fatigue set in and they paused to rest, Qin Shu, panting, draped an arm around Shin Luan's shoulder and remarked, Luan, I can't shake the feeling that you are somehow different. Shin Luan took a few sips of water from Ziyin and inquired. Different how? I can't quite articulate it, Qin Shu replied, but you seem to have suddenly grown wiser. Shin Luan nearly choked on the water. Do you believe the former me was better, or the current me? The current you, Qin Shu answered without hesitation. I like you just as you are now, very much. Shin Luan smiled, her eyes curving with delight. I like it too. But who could have imagined that such wisdom would come at such a steep price? Ultimately, the kites were sent soaring into the sky, with Shin Luan holding the string, occasionally tugging gently, her gaze fixed on the swallows gliding through the azure above, lost in reverie. Though they resembled real swallows, they were still tethered by a string, forever unable to become real. Much like her own existence, she felt as if she had grown perceptive and enlightened, yet remained forever ensnared by hatred, until vengeance was exacted. She could only exist like this kite. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through, causing the young lady's skirts to flutter, with gasps and exclamations echoing around. Shin Luan felt the string in her hand suddenly lighten. The taut line slackened, and the swallow was whisked away by the wind, drifting towards the lake. Luan, your kite has flown away. Shin Luan stared blankly at the receding kite, halting Ziyin from sending someone to retrieve it. No need to search. If it's broken, then it's broken. Perhaps it is for the best. She sat aside, continuing to watch Qin Shu play. Shortly after, a little maid approached Qin Shu, whispered a few words to Ziyin, and then left. Yin came over, lowering her voice. Miss, the fourth young lady has made a fool of herself at the archery range. The matron came to confirm that you were not with her before she felt at ease. Understood. I will return to mother once Shu has had her fill of fun. Miss, what sort of folly could the fourth young lady have committed that reached the matron's ears? Shin Luan rested her chin on her hand. A faint smile gracing her lips. Who knows? Fourth sister has always been quite sensible. It is likely just a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. Shu's tone shifted. Who has stopped you from trying your hand at archery? You, a young lady, should steer clear of the men's arena, yet you insist on mingling among them. When others kindly advise you, you take offense. Is this a misunderstanding? She was nearly at her wit's end. Having finally encountered a few families she deemed respectable, only to have someone approach her mid-conversation to request that she remove Shunyu from the archery field. Though the messenger had been quite polite, the implication was clear. Shin family ladies were beyond their control, and they had to ask family members to intervene. The matron, having been engaged in conversation, immediately wore an unusual expression and excused herself. Chapter 51. Understanding Shin Yu wore a pitiful expression, eager to defend herself, yet Yu Shi was in no mood to listen. Whatever you have to say, explain it to the old matriarch. She was livid at having delayed Qing Yao's significant matter and was determined to make Shin Yu pay dearly for it. Just then, Shun Luan arrived alongside Jin Shi and overheard the commotion, rushing to ask, "What has happened?" "Aunt, fourth sister is usually quite well-mannered. What has provoked such anger? A daughter of a concubine should not bring disgrace upon herself." Yu Shi was also incensed, echoing Shun Luan's words, leaving Shun Yu's face pale with shame. They had yet to leave, and already curious glances were cast in their direction. Shun Yu, furious and humiliated, could only swallow her indignation, feeling her blood boil and her ears ringing. When Yu Shi went to excuse herself from the Du family matron, Shun Luan spoke softly to console Shin Yu. "Fourth sister, do not be disheartened. Aunt likely meant no harm. Once everything is clarified, regardless of what others say, I will always believe in you." Her empathetic demeanor nearly suffocated Shin Yu, who blushed crimson but could not find her voice. On the way back, Shun Luan gathered the gist of the situation from Jin Shit was not a grave matter, merely that Shan Yu had ventured to the men's archery range, wishing to try her hand at it. When a girl nearby attempted to stop her, she refused to listen, arguing that if others could shoot, why couldn't she? The argument escalated, with Shun Yu feeling wronged and accusing the other of looking down upon her. Does she not realize the nature of that place and the status of those who frequent it? Surely, the young lady could not have thought her usual demeanor would suffice in such a setting. Provoking the ire of the other girls, Jan Shi shook her head. "It is no wonder your aunt was so furious. The Shun family's reputation is intertwined, at such a time when Qing Yao is to be scrutinized. Such a scene could tarnish the family's name." Shun Luan felt little concern, as she had never considered marriage, though she pitied her elder sister. Upon returning to the Shen residence, Yu Shi directly took Shun Yu to the old matriarch. Recounting the incident in great detail, "Mother, Qing Yao is the eldest daughter. How can she afford such delays? What will become of her if you continues this way? Second sister-in-law, how do you usually educate your daughters?" Lu Shi shot a glare at Shin Yu, uninterested in defending her. Tears immediately streamed down Shun Yu's face. "Grandmother, I am wronged. It was merely a misunderstanding. I am usually self-disciplined and respectful. How could I dare to act recklessly?" Wiping her tears, she gazed at Shin Luan with misty eyes. "Third sister, I only wished to try it after hearing you say you had shot arrows and received compliments. Did you deceive me?" Shin Luan, calm and composed, stepped forward to face the scrutiny of the crowd. "Why does fourth sister harbor such suspicion towards me? Have I ever deceived you in these years? I have treated you as a sister, yet it appears you see me differently." She dabbed at the corner of her eyes, her sorrow palpable. "I did indeed say that. I also mentioned that if you were present, you would undoubtedly excel beyond me, but I was speaking of the archery range meant for ladies. I distinctly saw you at the men's archery range. Oh, I only went there later." Shun Luan sighed, clarifying, "While I may have received compliments, they were merely from the heir of the Guangyang Marquis, who praised me for Qin Shu's sake. Fourth sister, why do you assume I ventured into the men's space? How could I be so reckless?" Shin Yu's face drained of color. Shun Luan's implication was unmistakable. It was she who lacked discretion. Chapter 52. Inadequate results. Grandmother, it truly was a misunderstanding. Shen Yu wept pitifully, and Shen Luan, furrowing her brow, felt an urgent desire to assist her. "Grandmother, fourth sister likely did not intend to quarrel. She may have simply sought the approval of others, wishing to uphold the Shun family's dignity." Yu Shi let out a scornful laugh. "Ha! Does our Shun family's reputation require her to fight for it? It would be a disgrace enough." Shin Yu wished she could seal Shun Luan's lips. Her clumsiness was a liability. The old matriarch, who had been half listening, now seemed weary of the matter. "Before we departed, I stated that each household must manage its own affairs. Yu has acted inappropriately and will be confined to her room for a month. To copy the family teachings several times. Ling will do so as well." Shin Ling, who had been enjoying the spectacle, suddenly found herself implicated. "Grandmother, why must I be included? I have done nothing wrong. You are Shan Yu's elder sister. Is it not a fault that you failed to properly guide her?" But Shan Ling began to protest, but Lu Shi pulled her sharply. "What mother says goes. You are to return and ensure proper discipline for these two girls." "Yes, and you?" Since you brought her out, how could you allow Xinyu to make such a blunder? You will be penalized with a deduction of 3 months' allowance. Lu Shi felt a pang of distress but could only acquiesce, her gaze toward Xinyu sharp as a knife. Shen Yu's hands trembled slightly, fully aware that she would face a long period of discomfort ahead. This matter is entirely to blame on grandmother. I am indeed the elder sister of the fourth sister. When she errs, I cannot absolve myself of responsibility. I am willing to share the punishment with her. Shen Luan knelt beside Xinyu, her heart heavy with unease, for usually, the fourth sister and I share a close bond. Yet this time, due to a misunderstanding of my words, she has committed a mistake, which troubles me greatly, observing her actions. Xinyu felt a swell of doubt. Indeed, the fault lies with Xin Luan for her foolishness in failing to articulate her thoughts completely. How could she have acted so thoughtlessly? Jin Shi, though slightly puzzled, quickly stepped forward to speak on Xin Luan's behalf. Do not blame Luaner, mother. She has always been by my side. Had she not been, she would have been with the daughters of the Qin family. Who could have foreseen that a casual remark could lead to such trouble? I will ensure she understands better upon my return. Very well, Rized, I am not so muddle-headed yet. Luaner usually acts with caution. A few more words of guidance upon your return will suffice. The daughter-in-law understood. Despite her lingering dissatisfaction, Yu Shi had no choice but to acquiesce. After a while, the men of the household came to pay their respects. And suddenly, Yu Shi recalled something. Luan girl, I heard from you girl that you often visit the family school and even bring sweet soup. Did not Aunt say that the family school is a place for the boys to study? With outside males present? How can a young girl like you frequently go there? Shen Luan looked at her in bewilderment, her expression one of confusion as if she did not comprehend the accusation. However, Shun Jian had already interjected, Mother, when was this? Luaner hardly visits the family school. She has only been once to deliver some soup to me and Wen Shao, and with both of us brothers present. There was nothing inappropriate about it. Turning to Shen Luan, it seemed she had finally grasped the situation. With her head slightly bowed, her tone held a hint of unvoiced grievance. Aunt is right. From now on, I shall refrain from going there. Chapter 53. The existence of truth. Yu Shi felt embarrassed by her son's rebuttal and was taken aback when Wen Shao, usually reticent, spoke up. Aunt has made an error. The one who frequently visits the family school is someone else. It is rather hasty of you to blame Luaner without understanding the situation. Yu Shi's mood, already sour, darkened further as she faced defiance from her younger relatives, her face flushing with indignation. Xinyu, is this what you said? That Xin Luan is close to the heir of the Guangyang Marquis and even goes to the family school to bring him sweet soup? Xinyu felt a chill run through her. She was agitated and furious. She had often made such remarks before, yet never had she been summoned to confront them directly. What was wrong with Aunt today? Trembling, she looked at Yu Shi. Surely, Aunt must be mistaken. My third sister is friendly with the Qin girl from the Guangyang Marquis' household, as everyone knows. The matter of the sweet soup was mentioned casually by my third sister. How would I know for whom it was intended? Ah, Xinyu, are you now attempting to deny it? Clearly, it is you. Enough. The old matriarch slammed her hand on the table, the beads in her grasp clattering heavily. The Shun family is a scholarly lineage, a century-old clan. Have you all forgotten your roots? The hall fell into a deafening silence. The old matriarch's anger intensified Shan Yu's confinement, and she also penalized Yu Shi by withholding her monthly allowance. To speak of hearsay in this manner is unbecoming. You are the mistress of the Shan household, yet you accuse your juniors with baseless claims. What a disgrace! Yu Shi, humiliated, lowered her head in acknowledgement of her fault. Her heart seething with resentment towards Shin Yu. As Shen Luan left with Jin Shi, she cast a complex glance at Xinyu, an amalgamation of shock and confusion, as though she was seeing Xinyu for the first time. Ultimately, she bit her lip and turned away. Xinyu was immediately engulfed in a sense of hopeless isolation. The thought that she had offended nearly everyone, even that fool Shen Luan would not come to her aid, filled her with despair. How could she endure these 2 months of confinement? Shen Luan, indifferent to her plight, felt a sense of relief at seeing Shen Yu's conflicted expression, though it was far from sufficient. Miss, where should I place this? Shen Luan was momentarily taken aback, looking at the wooden doll in Ziyan's hands. Reflecting on the day's events, she found it somewhat amusing. Bring it here. I want to take a closer look. Shen Luan examined the doll, having to admit that Qin Shu's idea was truly ingenious. The more she looked, the more it resembled Qin Gu. Just leave it. It is for warding off evil. Huh? Ziyin was perplexed. But she complied, placing the doll on the table by the window, next to the plum vase, finding it rather charming. With Shun Yu unable to cause trouble for at least 2 months, Shun Luan finally had some leisure time. She crafted a fan pendant for Shun when the weather was warming. It was quite elegant for a scholar to wield a fan. Ziyin admired the unfinished pendant, praising, "Miss, your embroidery skills have improved immensely, and the color combination is exquisite. The young master will surely appreciate it." Let us hope so. Shun Luan did not expect much. She was merely grateful for his previous words on her behalf. For the first time, she found Shun Wen Xiao's stern demeanor captivating, as if her brother had come to life in a tangible way. "Once you have finished the pendant for the young master, why not try making something for the lady as well? Mother lacks nothing. She has already engaged renowned embroiderers for silk handkerchiefs and fragrant sachets. While it is true that the lady lacks nothing, your sincerity is another matter. Perhaps you should give it a try. She may indeed be pleased." Shun Luan pondered, "Then perhaps I shall give it a try." Chapter 54. A matter of urgency. Though Shun Luan had yet to complete the fan pendant, she received an unexpected gift. From the Guangyang Marquis' household, Shun Luan set down her embroidery frame with a smile. "What has Shu Shu sent me this time? She always seems to send something my way." Upon opening the box, she found another exquisitely crafted case, but Shun Luan froze. This case? Why does it look so familiar? She had seen it at Qin Shu's place. It contained a white jade, intricately designed ball. Was this a gift from Shu Shu? Replying to the young lady, "It only mentions the Guangyang Marquis' household." Shun Luan hesitated for a long moment before extending her hand to lift the case. The white jade ball lay quietly within. "Young lady, this is, put it away for now." She waved her hand dismissively, refusing to look at it any longer. Qin Gu truly sent it to her. Ziyin instructed the servants to leave the room, closing the door behind her to guard the entrance. Shun Luan sat there for a while, wanting to continue her embroidery, but after picking up the needle, she found herself unable to pierce the fabric. She felt utterly perplexed. This development had not occurred in her previous life, and she had never seen another white jade ball. What, she wondered, could have caused Qin Gu to act differently this time? Shun Luan pondered deeply, questioning whether it was her own unusual behavior that had led to this change. When faced with Qin Gu, she could not maintain her composure. Whenever she drew near him, her emotions and expressions became uncontrollable. Could it be my fault? Tears brimmed in Shun Luan's eyes. She had not meant to, and she was powerless to change it. It was all Chao Jin's fault. Shun Luan gritted her teeth, realizing that the root of all her troubles lay with that very Chao Jin. At this moment, Chao Jin was equally bewildered. How could this be happening? Did that article fail to impress Shun Yuanzhong? That seemed impossible. After handing him the article, his attitude had warmed considerably, and he had praised her profusely. If that were true, how could he only promote her from editor to compiler? In her previous life, he had directly ascended to the position of attendant lecturer. Frustrated, Chao Jin pondered the difference between compiler and editor. Both positions required no relocation. In the eyes of others, it remained trivial. This was a far cry from the outcome he had anticipated. Perhaps the Shen family does not trust my loyalty. After much contemplation, he arrived at this conclusion: it must be because in my past life, I became the son-in-law of the Shen family, hence they spared no effort in assisting me. But now, it is not the case. Therefore, I must marry Shun Luan. Only by doing so can I gain their support and achieve the heights I failed to reach in my previous life. Chao Jin's eyes gleamed with ambition. He felt he had a substantial chance this time. It was merely a matter of retracing his steps, and he would navigate them with even greater ease and brilliance. However, the immediate priority was to rekindle his connection with Shun Luan. The Shen family had also mentioned Chao Jin. Yusher was in a fit of fury in the courtyard, all thanks to Shen Yu. The banquet invitation from the Du family had yielded no results. As the time for Qin Girl to marry drew near, the eligible gentlemen in Yin City were limited. If they were all snatched away by others, what would become of Qin Girl? She glanced at Shun Yuanzhong. "Why, Lord, you ought to speak up as well. You go out every day. Have you found any suitable candidates?" Shun Yuanzhong pondered briefly. "Though our Shun family is a century-old clan, we hold little real power in the court. Had my third brother still been alive, it would have been a different matter. For now, finding a loyal Diligent family for Qing'er is already commendable. Commendable? Do you wish to see Qinggirl suffer in the future? What has happened to the Shin family? The Shin family is well known in Yin City. How can we not hope for a good match? My lord, do put in some effort. Do you not have anyone in mind? Well, there is indeed someone. What is their name? Where are they from? What is their official rank? What kind of family do they have? My lord, do tell. Shin Yuanzhong cast a glance at her and spoke slowly. This is the Chao Jin I mentioned last time. He is truly talented and knowledgeable. Given the opportunity, he will undoubtedly rise to prominence. What is particularly commendable is his humility and respect for the wise. And as for his appearance, enough. Is he not the one born a scholar with no status or background? Yet you praise him as if he were a blooming flower. You sure could hardly bear to listen to his praise any longer. Is it possible that Qingtai is not your own daughter? How could you stoop so low as to match her with such a person? A mere editor cannot possibly marry my Shun family's legitimate eldest daughter. He is no longer just an editor. He has since become a reviser. What difference does that make? If you truly admire him, why not recommend him to the other maidens in the household? I certainly have no interest in him. Womenfolk can be utterly unreasonable. Shin Yuanzhong sighed, genuinely appreciating Chao Jin and contemplating how wonderful it would be if he were his son-in-law. Alas, you sure harbored disdain for him. What a pity. Shun Luan spent several days meticulously embroidering the fan pendant, which was exquisite and uniquely charming, reflecting a certain elegance that matched her brother's temperament well enough to avoid any overt disdain. She selected a day and, along with a canister of unopened new tea from her mother, sent it over with Xian. Before long, Xian returned, still carrying something in her hands. Miss, the second young master said that giving gifts requires sincerity. How could he allow a maid to deliver them? Xian felt aggrieved. Shen Luan, secretly impressed, thought that he was slightly easier to deal with than in her previous life, yet he was still the most peculiar of the Shen family, Shen Wenxiao. Very well, I shall go personally. She patted Xian on the shoulder, removing a white jade hairpin from her head and placing it in Xian's hair. Do not be upset. If I return in a foul mood, you must comfort me. Shen Luan personally brought the gifts and re-entered Shan Wenxiao's courtyard. This time, he was not reading but sitting at the table, sipping tea, with an empty cup placed opposite him. Brother. Shen Luan endeavored to appear as sincere as possible, quickly explaining her purpose and placing the items on the table, wondering if she could just leave afterward. Sit. Shan Wenxiao gestured gently with his chin, shattering Shan Luan's hopes for a swift resolution. As she took a seat at the table, Shen Wenxiao surprisingly poured her a cup of tea himself. Shen Luan felt a surge of anxiety, questioning whether she could drink it or if it would be better to bring it back as an offering. Not thirsty, thirsty, thirsty. She raised the cup and took a couple of sips. The temperature was just right, and the fragrance of the tea wafted delightfully. Shan Wenxiao was already inspecting the fan pendant in his hands, his expression as stern as a teacher reviewing a student's work. Shen Luan dared not breathe, the atmosphere inexplicably tense. Not bad. It can be presented to others. Thank you, brother, for your praise. His beauty could hardly kill him. I shall not embroider again. Have you practiced the characters I wrote for you? Shen Luan was taken aback. Characters? Do I still need to practice? Seeing her expression, Shen Wenxiao's eyes narrowed. Did you not say you would practice diligently with the characters you brought back last time? Were you deceiving me? Shen Luan instinctively shook her head. I have practiced, truly. Is that so? Then write two for me to see to tea that moment. Shen Luan regretted ever coming. Why had she bothered with the fan pendant? Wouldn't it be more enjoyable to snack on seeds instead? Chapter 55. Composure under Shen Wenxiao's unwavering gaze. Shen Luan slowly rose and stiffly approached the desk. Oh dear, the ink and brush are all ready. Was this a premeditated attempt to make things difficult for me? Shen Luan steeled herself and took the brush, writing on the paper as if she were in a state of despair. Her calligraphy, practiced in her previous life, was lacking due to the tumultuous circumstances then. Later, she had been preoccupied with arranging matters for Chao Jin, resulting in her skills being rather poor. Once she finished writing, Shen Wenxiao approached her and, as expected, frowned. Shen Luan had just resolved to abandon her inhibitions, but upon seeing his expression, she instantly transformed into a compliant demeanor. I shall practice diligently. It's just that I lacked guidance before, which led to my neglect. Unconsciously donning a pleasing smile, she attempted to placate him. Shen Wenxiao could not abide subpar calligraphy and had intended to reprimand her. However, seeing her smile, he merely pursed his lips and moved behind the desk, gently pinching a corner of the paper as if it might contaminate him with her inferior writing. He discarded it and laid a new sheet before her. He took up the brush and quickly wrote a few characters on the new sheet. "Take this and practice. Bring it back to me in 3 days for inspection." Shin Luan. Surely, he jested. "Brother, you work so hard on your studies. As your sister, how could I dare disturb you? Or rather, if you know how hard I work, then write beautifully." Shin Luan could not comprehend why her writing style was of any concern to him. "The quality of my writing reflects my character. As a daughter of the Shin family, it is only fitting to possess beautiful handwriting. Previously, you spent all day fooling around with Shunyu. Now you should see her true nature. The matters we have delayed must be addressed one by one." For a fleeting moment, Shun Luan felt a strong desire to renounce this brother. Shun Wenshao lowered his gaze to scrutinize her. "Have you memorized it?" Shin Luan, showing a distinct lack of backbone, replied, "I have memorized it." "Very well, you may leave." Shun Luan departed bearing gifts, yet returned empty-handed. "Ha ha ha." Zian hurried to support Shin Luan. "Dio, not be upset. Mississippi, the second young master, is only thinking of your well-being. Practicing writing will allow you to maintain your composure." I was, in fact, quite composed. Shun Luan glanced down at the characters she had brought back, instantly losing her tranquility. My brother has not even achieved a successful examination, yet he already carries himself with such airs. How will this be in the future? However, Shun Luan had one redeeming quality. Whatever she agreed to undertake, she would see through to completion, even if reluctantly. After returning home, she sighed for a while but eventually began to practice diligently. During her free time, Shun Luan started contemplating creating a sachet for Jean Sure. Her mother frequently replaced her sachets, each with a different design, so she decided to embroider one according to her preferences. "By the way, Zian, where is Yuji?" Zian, assisting Shun Luan in selecting silk threads, replied softly. "Yuji left early this morning, saying she would go fetch this month's expenses for the young lady. She has not returned since." Shun Luan chuckled lightly. "Let her be. When she returns, have her come to see me. I have something to discuss with her." Having chosen her design, Shun Luan began to embroider slowly. Before long, Yuji returned. "Miss, did you call for me?" "Yes, these past few days, I have felt a lingering unease, and I am not sure how my fourth sister is faring." Shun Luan spoke softly as she embroidered. "Although I do not understand why my fourth sister spoke of me that way. She has always treated me kindly, and it troubles me." Such heartfelt confessions had been shared between Shun Luan and Yuji many times, each time earning Yuji's unwavering loyalty. Yuji's eyes flickered slightly. "Miss, just as I was leaving, I happened to encounter the fourth young lady's personal maid, Jean Xiao. She was crying and told me that the fourth young lady is having a very difficult time but still thinks of you." Shin Luan refrained from questioning how Jean Xiao could be out and about despite the fourth lady's confinement, instead expressing her concern. "What has happened to my fourth sister? You know that the second madam has never favored the fourth young lady. Recently, the second madam was penalized with a deduction in her monthly allowance, and in her anger, she has been targeting the fourth young lady, making her daily life quite challenging." Shin Luan's tone reflected her worry. "Is that so? But this is grandmother's punishment. Even if I want to help my fourth sister, I am powerless. Miss, the only one who can help the fourth young lady now is you. The old lady has always favored you. If you could plead on behalf of the fourth young lady, perhaps her punishment could be lifted." Yu Ji's words lit a spark in Shan Luan's eyes, only to extinguish it almost immediately. "I already pleaded with grandmother at that time, but she did not listen. If I go again, I fear it may only anger her at that time." The old lady was indeed furious and would not listen. However, now that several days have passed, she should have calmed down. You need only to speak on her behalf, and you may very well save the fourth young lady from her predicament. She will surely be grateful to you. Then, I shall give it a try." After Yuji left, Shun Luan resumed her embroidery at a leisurely pace. The following day, she indeed took Zian with her to visit her grandmother, returning to the courtyard with a look of despair. "Do not speak of it. Grandmother did not even let me finish speaking. However, if you encounter Jean Xiao again, please tell her I will certainly go and speak for the fourth sister, so she need not worry." Afterward, Shun Luan became increasingly frequent in her visits to her grandmother, yet during those visits, she never mentioned Shenyu. While dutifully attending to her grandmother, how could she bring up matters that might displease her? As for Shenyu, she would wait with hope. The more she anticipated a turn of events, the more unbearable the disappointment would be when hope was dashed. Over the course of these 2 months, she would allow Shunyu to truly experience the taste of suffering. The exquisite sachet crafted for the Jin family consumed a considerable amount of Shun Luan's effort. From the selection of materials to the silk thread, from the design to the color scheme, every detail was meticulously chosen by her. Once the sachet was embroidered, Shun Luan felt a flutter of anxiety as she personally delivered it. "Did you make this for me?" Jane Sure asked, her eyes widening in surprise as she hastily set aside her fan and carefully accepted the sachet from Shun Luan. The soft, pale lotus green was adorned with only a few embroidered lotus leaves, while a singular, partially blossomed lotus flower stood proudly, exuding an air of elegance and refinement. As the weather grew warmer, it contained invigorating scents that would refresh the spirit. Why Mother often changes her sachets. And since I am unaware of your preferences, I simply made this based on my own judgment. I hope you do not find it lacking. Jane Sure gently caressed the sachet with her fingertips. The smooth texture immediately indicated to her that it was crafted from superior materials. The intricate embroidery was so finely detailed that it vividly brought the design to life, a testament to the care poured into its creation. In that moment, Jane Sure truly felt the joy of being a mother. It was no longer just her unilateral protection. It wasn't merely that she found raising a child to be fascinating. This delicate sachet suddenly bore a weight of significance. "I love it. I adore it," Jane Sure declared, looking up with a beaming smile that seemed to suggest that in the blink of an eye. Luaner had matured. Shun Luan shyly lowered her gaze, a faint smile playing on her lips as she noticed the uncontainable emotion in Jane Sure's eyes, almost breaking her own composure. It was indeed true that there were individuals in this world who cared for her selflessly, without ulterior motives, a realization that had taken her 2 lifetimes to comprehend. Jane Sure praised the sachet profusely, extolling it as unparalleled, before solemnly replacing her own sachet with it and instructing a servant to fetch a dish of fresh fruit. "I was just about to send some to you, but do have a taste first. It just arrived from the estate." "How fortunate I am," Shun Luan replied. Jane Sure chuckled. "This is merely the beginning. Once my fleet returns, there will be an abundance of fascinating and novel items that I shall have selected for you." "Are you referring to merchant ships, Mother? I have heard that trading at sea requires permission from the court." Shun Luan recalled having heard such matters in her previous life, during which Chao Jin had long harbored aspirations of acquiring a merchant vessel, yet had never succeeded, often expressing his frustration over it. Jane Sure's eyes sparkled. "Luaner, you are interested in this? If you wish to share, Mother, I am indeed intrigued." This pleased Jane Sure, for despite the Shun family's generosity toward her, it was all due to the memory of the late Shin Yunxiu, her husband. She was fully aware of the underlying sentiments held by others. Her own mother hailed from a wealthy family in Jiangnan, while the Shin family was scholarly and refined, leading many to perceive her as carrying the heavy scent of commerce. Jane Sure, however, did not mind. If they truly held such lofty ideals, they could live off morning dew. Yet, she remained conscious of Shun Luan's perception of her, striving to avoid discussions about business in her presence. To her surprise, Shun Luan showed no aversion to the topic. Once the conversation shifted to such matters, Jane Sure could speak endlessly, carefully selecting only the most engaging anecdotes to maintain Shun Luan's interest. Shun Luan listened with rapt attention. In her previous life, she had navigated the intricacies of business alone, relying on diligence and long hours to sustain Chao Jin's modest enterprise. Hearing Jane Sure speak now felt like a wealth of knowledge being bestowed upon her. "If you are interested, let us visit the shop together tomorrow. Eventually, you will be responsible for it, and while there are managers in place, it is essential that you have a grasp of the operations to avoid being misled." Shun Luan eagerly agreed, suddenly struck by a thought. "Does your shop deal in the 4 treasures of the study?" "Ah, I believe there are 1 or 2 establishments, though they operate on a small scale." "Why do you ask?" "I happen to hear that Xian paper is currently affordable. Perhaps you could stock up a bit more?" Shun Luan recalled that in the near future, paper would become scarce in Yin City due to a flood affecting a paper-making region, coinciding with the examination season when students would undoubtedly be in dire need of paper. It was only due to the presence of 2 candidates in her family that she retained this impression, as it would soon reach a point where finding paper became a challenge. Thus, she suggested her mother's shop prepare adequately in advance. To Shun Luan's surprise, Jane Sure, after a brief contemplation, responded with unexpected words. "I have long considered that you should learn some business acumen. You may not wish to, as it seems unseemly for a woman to engage in commerce, yet Luaner, as a woman, relying solely on men for a living will undoubtedly lead to hardship. Jean Sure had witnessed enough to understand that the more affluent merchant families placed great value on wealth. For a woman to manage a household, every necessity, be it rice, oil, salt, soy sauce, or tea, required money. A skillful wife cannot cook without rice. One cannot simply wish for rouge and powder without drawing from the household funds. Though the family you marry into will likely be respectable, consider the Shin family. We are indeed esteemed in Yin City, yet does your aunt not constantly monitor household expenses? Regardless of the family, even those within the palace walls require a firm grip on their finances to feel secure. Since you have brought this up, I am inclined to entrust the 2 shops dealing in the 4 treasures of the study to you for management. You may experiment according to your ideas. Shen Luan was taken aback. You wish to give them to me? Do not take it too seriously. Even if the shops were to fail, it would not matter. They are not of great importance. This is merely an opportunity for you to practice and familiarize yourself. Jian Shi was utterly unfazed, as if handing a trivial toy to a child. Yet Shen Luan found herself profoundly startled. She gained a fresh perspective on her biological mother's wealth and generosity. Jian Shi, accustomed to decisiveness, promptly instructed that the managers of the 2 shops be informed that from that day forth, all decisions regarding the shops would be made by Shen Luan. Throughout the process, Shen Luan was bewildered. Did she truly not fear ruining the shops? The managers of the 2 establishments took Jean Shi's words very seriously, and by the next day, they delivered the account books to Shen Luan. Reviewing account books was a familiar task for Shen Luan, and now, as she resumed this old endeavor, it felt effortless as she examined the records. She identified areas of confusion, and the managers patiently clarified each point, their demeanor exceedingly accommodating. This left Shen Luan with a deep sense of gratitude. In the past, the few shops owned by Chao Jin yielded minimal profit, and the managers often appeared impatient. Shen Luan had invested considerable effort to gradually set those shops on the right track. Now, reflecting on it, she felt a surge of resentment toward Chao Jin. Why had she poured her heart and soul into his affairs? Thank you both for your hard work. I wish to stock up on paper, as the examinations are approaching, and I anticipate a significant demand. One of the managers smiled. What the young lady says is entirely correct. We had considered this in advance and have already stocked a large supply in the storeroom, which should suffice. I believe it is insufficient. Shen Luan looked at them. Would you both kindly follow my suggestion? How much do you wish to stock? The more, the better. I want enough to fill the storeroom to capacity. The 2 managers exchanged glances. Although they were aware that Madame had indicated they would be assigned elsewhere should the shops fail, they were astonished by the 3rd young lady's apparent lack of reliability. However, since Madame had given Shen Luan free rein, they complied despite their doubts. Very well, we shall proceed as you wish. Thank you for your diligence. Shen Luan saw them off and suddenly felt a profound sense of assurance. Her mother was correct. As a woman, she must have her own means of support. What use was it to toil for others? Would anyone remember her hard work? No, they would only demand more, believing it to be her duty. Shen Luan took a deep breath, her eyes narrowing as a smile spread across her face. Xian, it has been a while since we last visited Guanghua Temple, has it not? Chapter 57. Just a casual remark indeed. It is almost time for the anniversary of father and your birth mother's passing. You should begin your preparations. Yes, then let us prepare thoroughly. In her previous life, Guanghua Temple was where all her misfortunes began. It was there that she first encountered Chao Jin, and from that moment, it was as if she had become a bird ensnared in a net, struggling to her demise. Chao Jin would inevitably reappear. And these days, Shen Luan had been gradually settling her emotions, eagerly anticipating their encounter. It would surely be intriguing. 2 days later, Shen Luan visited Shen Wenxiao to submit her homework. Shen Wenxiao assigned her a few characters every few days, prompting her to diligently practice and then bring her work for his review, during which he would offer guidance. Initially, Shen Luan had been somewhat reluctant, but as she immersed herself in practice, she gradually developed a fondness for writing. She felt that the act of writing allowed her pent-up resentment and restlessness to dissipate, granting her a fleeting moment of tranquility. Things have been going well, but you seem somewhat distracted these past few days. Shen Wenxiao furrowed his brow. Shen Luan gently lowered her head. In a couple of days, I will be visiting Guanghua Temple. Perhaps my thoughts are preoccupied. Shen Wenxiao set down the paper, his expression neutral. Indeed, the anniversary of your father and your birth mother's passing is approaching. So it is understandable that your mind is elsewhere. However, the more you feel this way, the more you must not allow them to worry about you. Practice these characters again before you return. Shenluan, he is definitely my brother, without a doubt. I understand. On the day we go to Guanghua Temple, I will accompany you. Shenluan looked up, unable to suppress her astonishment. Shenwan Xiao regarded her. What? Is there a problem? Oh no. Shenluan merely found herself taken aback. Shenwan Xiao actually intended to accompany her to Guanghua Temple. What of Chao Jin? Why did he suddenly feel the urge to join her on this pilgrimage? This was not in keeping with his character. If she were to relive the past, she would never have anticipated that one day she would visit Guanghua Temple alongside Shenwan Xiao. Yet, it seemed there was no harm in this arrangement. On the day of their visit to Guanghua Temple, Shenluan donned a simple, unadorned outfit and set off with Zian and Yuezhi. Shenwan Xiao had long been waiting. Upon her arrival, he promptly ushered her into the carriage. As they journeyed towards Guanghua Temple, Shenluan found herself reflecting once more on her previous encounters with Chao Jin. On those occasions, she had visited to honor her parents' memory, and her heart had always been heavy with sorrow, lamenting how much better it would have been had her parents been alive. Why was her fate so cruel? Thus, she often shed tears in the mountains behind the temple, returning from each visit with swollen eyes. Further fueling her resentment towards the Jin family, on one such occasion, while she was weeping, someone unexpectedly arrived at the back mountain. Shenluan, caught off guard, collided with that person. It was Chao Jin At that time. He was the epitome of grace and refinement. Upon seeing her tears, he maintained his gentlemanly demeanor and offered gentle words of comfort, leaving a lasting impression on Shenluan. However, in her youthful naivety, she thought little of it, and soon after, she heard of Chao Jin's proposal for marriage in Shenluan's previous life. She believed that a woman's marriage was dictated by her parents' wishes and the intervention of matchmakers, a matter in which she had no say. She only knew that her grandmother and the Jin family opposed it, claiming that his status was insufficient to wed her. What are you thinking? Shenluan was abruptly brought back to reality, meeting Shenwan Xiao's scrutinizing gaze. His overly sharp eyes seemed capable of piercing through one's soul, causing her heart to tighten. I was pondering how, each year when I visited Guanghua Temple, I would blame fate, utterly convinced that I was the most pitiful person in the world, fearing that my parents must be deeply disappointed in me. Given your ability to think this way, there is still hope for you. Just strive not to let them down in the future. Shenluan pressed her lips together. In her youth, she had been oblivious, and her brother had failed to guide her. On a day like this, wouldn't it be appropriate for you to offer me some comfort? Shenluan longed to voice her grievances, but whenever she was with Shenwan Xiao, he never missed an opportunity to counter her remarks. Was he born to be a contrarian? Her tone bore a hint of grievance as Shenwan Xiao scoffed lightly. Guide you? Have I not done enough of that? Since you refuse to listen, why should I waste my breath? When has my brother ever guided me? You place unwavering faith in Shan Yu's words. I once urged you to open your eyes to life, and what of you? Shenluan was taken aback. As flickers of memories hidden deep within her resurfaced, he had indeed spoken those words, yet he stood before her like a wooden post, his face a mask of disdain, urging her to open her eyes. Shenluan had thought he merely wanted her to be cautious and avoid colliding with him. Is that what you call guidance? If that is the case, Shenwan Xiao's similar actions were numerous, each one pushing Shenluan further away, until she nearly resigned herself to silence. How did he define guidance? What else could it be? What then constitutes true guidance, brother? Have you ever witnessed how siblings and other families interact? Shenluan never imagined that one day she would engage in such a calm discussion about sibling relationships with Shan Wen's. In contrast, Shu Shu's elder brother would always bring her gifts upon his return, saving the best treats for her, and would protect her even when she erred. I am not suggesting that you are a poor brother. I merely made an observation, noticing a change in Shenwan Xiao's demeanor. Shenluan promptly ceased her complaints and sat up straight. Despite having lived 2 lifetimes, she still felt as timid as a quail in his presence. Are you envious of the Qin family's daughters? Not at all. I merely cited an example. Do you wish for me to bring you gifts for no reason? No, no, no. I think the current arrangement is rather satisfactory. Oh? What makes it so? Shenluan thought to herself. Was he really going to request more examples? Did he not have a sense of how well things were going? Well, my brother is quite admirable, knowledgeable, talented, and has a sister that others do not possess. Shenluan completely surrendered, squinting her eyes and giggling foolishly. Whatever will be. To her surprise, Shen Wanshao actually relented, his laughter losing some of its chill, replaced by a hint of helplessness. Shen Luan decided to close her eyes and repose, remaining silent until they reached Guanghua Temple, determined not to utter a word. The carriage halted, and the remaining path required them to ascend on foot. Having just endured a rainstorm, the trail from the foot of the mountain to Guanghua Temple was somewhat slippery. Shen Luan proceeded slowly, and to her astonishment, Shen Wanshao remained patient, waiting for her without a word, which left her feeling somewhat flattered. Upon arriving at Guanghua Temple, Shen Luan was already slightly breathless. Let's go inside. A resting chamber has been reserved for us, allowing us to pay our respects before resting until the afternoon. Inside the temple, the occasional sound of bells and the chanting of monks filled the air, mingling with the tranquil aroma of sandalwood incense, which naturally instilled a sense of solemnity and reverence in one's heart. In the main hall, Shen Luan knelt upon the mat. Lifting her gaze, she beheld the compassionate visage of the Bodhisattva, whose downturned eyes seemed to harbor boundless compassion, causing her own eyes to well with tears. Each time she visited, her emotions were the same, filled with sorrow and blame, questioning why her parents had abandoned her. If only they had taken her along, perhaps she would not have been subjected to ridicule and scorn. After marrying, the grotesque scar upon her face had rendered her too ashamed to return for worship. Fearing that others would see her disfigurement, she dared not step beyond the threshold of the Chow family, convinced that she could only live in seclusion, hiding her face for the rest of her days. Father, mother, your daughter is woefully inadequate. Shen Luan's tears flowed uncontrollably, soaking the front of her garment, leaving deep stains. But rest assured, I am aware of my purpose. Though I may not be clever, I will not be at the mercy of others. I shall ensure that they pay the same price, she murmured softly, her face adorned with tears, appearing to any onlooker as a tender, devout maiden deserving of pity. Chao Jin observed from a distance. His heart stirred. He had not seen Shen Luan since their encounter at the family academy, and this was the first opportunity he had to behold her again. Yet, he remembered clearly that on the anniversary of Shen Luan's parents' passing, she would invariably come to Guanghua Temple in a past life. It was here that he had first encountered her. At tea that time, she had been like a weeping pear blossom, and upon seeing him, the panic in her eyes had struck his heart deeply. She remained as sensitive and fragile as before. Chao Jian allowed a faint smile to grace his lips. This time, he was determined to leave a more profound impression on Shen Luan. No one knew her preferences better than he. Kneeling on the mat, Shen Luan composedly wiped away her tears, sincerely bowing before the Bodhisattva. She did not seek the Bodhisattva's blessing for vengeance. Rather, she was grateful to the heavens for granting her this chance. The rest, she would handle herself. After the worship, Shen Luan instructed Xian to head to the chamber to tidy up while she took a breath of fresh air in the back mountains with Yueji. Xian understood that Shen Luan would always venture to the back mountains, so she departed without concern. Shen Luan, accompanied by Yueji, strolled slowly towards the back mountains. The mountain flowers had bloomed abundantly, yet the recent rain had caused many petals to fall, creating a scene of melancholic beauty. Yueji followed closely behind, offering gentle words of comfort. Do not be sad, miss. Take care not to fall ill, for the master and madam would be heartbroken to know. Ah, if only the fourth young lady were here. She would surely console you well. Indeed, the fourth sister has always been gentle and considerate. The words spoken by the fourth young lady, though sometimes unpalatable, were always in consideration of the miss's feelings. Had the mistress been more accommodating towards the concubine back then, the miss would not have to bear such sorrow each year on this day. Shen Luan listened quietly, each word from Yueji coming from a place of genuine concern, and she felt a sense of warmth. In the past, she would have been moved by such sentiments, which seemed entirely understandable. Yet, she had never contemplated that Shen Yu, who lived under the thumb of her second aunt, would continuously provoke her to distance herself from her biological mother. If she truly wished for a better life, she would not have acted in such a manner. There is a bench over there. Let us sit for a moment. Yueji promptly cleaned the bench and assisted Shen Luan in sitting down. Beneath the tree, the woman clad in simple garments wore a sorrowful expression. Her delicate and exquisite face, no larger than a palm, bore eyes glistening with moisture and brows gently furrowed, as if she were burdened with unspeakable worries. From a distance, she resembled a portrait of beauty. Chao Jian gazed at her, realizing only after having lost her that he truly cherished Shen Luan, despite also harboring a desire for power, in pursuit of power. He had been forced to relinquish Shen Luan, yet this had left him equally despondent. Thus, fate had granted him a chance for reconciliation. Shen Luan calculated the passage of time, appearing to admire the scenery while quietly waiting for Chao Jin's arrival. Just as she contemplated this, her peripheral vision caught sight of a figure hurrying toward her. Yuezhi dutifully intercepted him. "Who are you? Did you not see that my lady is resting here?" Shen Luan had already risen. A fleeting look of panic crossing her face as she delicately dabbed at the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief, striving to conceal the traces of her tears. "Why apologies, young lady? For my intrusion, I merely stopped here for a brief moment and seem to have misplaced a pouch of mine, which holds great significance to me. I hope you can forgive my rudeness." Oh, a change of tactics. Shen Luan harbored curiosity in her heart, yet her visage betrayed her with a look of lingering shock as she stepped aside. "I did not perceive any purse. Perhaps the young master has misplaced it elsewhere? It must have been right here. I had even toyed with it while seated, but it vanished upon my departure." Chao Jin's performance was remarkably convincing, brimming with anxiety to the point of disregarding decorum. As he bent down to search around him, he searched with earnestness, yet his peripheral vision remained keenly attuned to Shen Luan's reactions. As anticipated, she did not leave, seemingly assisting him in scanning the vicinity. After an exhaustive search yielded no results, Chao Jin despondently sank onto a stone bench, his expression one of profound distraction. Was that purse truly so significant to the young master? "It was a token meticulously crafted by my mother before my arrival in Yin City." Chao Jin closed his eyes briefly, his countenance tinged with bitterness. "I ventured to Yin City alone, my mother fretting over my solitude, her heartfelt longing encapsulated within that purse. Now, I have carelessly allowed it to slip away." Shen Luan silently applauded within, marveling at his acting prowess. It would indeed be a pity if he did not pursue a career on the stage. How could Chao Jin's mother possess such intricate emotions? She was almost a mirror image of him, albeit her pursuit of power and desire lay bare. However, for Shen Luan in this moment, such topics were likely to resonate deeply. Indeed, her eyes glimmered with unshed tears. No wonder the young master was so agitated. An object bestowed by a mother is among the most cherished in existence. "Thank you, miss, for your understanding. I have not seen my mother in quite some time. Thus, the loss of the purse has caused me to lose my composure before you." Chao Jian rose, bowing respectfully towards Shen Luan, his gentlemanly demeanor unmistakable. Shen Luan slightly turned away. "There is no need for such formality. Young master, your filial piety is truly commendable. How could I possibly hold it against you?" After straightening up, Chao Jian furrowed his brow slightly. "Pardon my impertinence, but have we not encountered one another previously? You seem strikingly familiar." Shen Luan was taken aback, her eyes widening slightly. "Have you perhaps visited the Shen family's academy?" Chao Jin's heart leapt with joy. She actually remembered. It appeared he had made quite an impression on her. So she was the daughter of the Shen family. No wonder she radiated such extraordinary poise. What a coincidence. Did you come to Guanghua Temple to make a wish, perhaps? As they were already acquainted and with attendants nearby. Shen Luan resumed her seat on the stone bench and began conversing with Chao Jin. Chapter 59. Awaiting the outcome. Chao Jin revealed that his visit to Guanghua Temple was primarily to pray for the well-being of his parents. "I hope you do not find it laughable, miss, but scholars often tread cautiously around matters of the supernatural. I simply wish for my elder's health. Even if I were to be mocked, I would accept it willingly." Shen Luan had no choice but to feign admiration. "Your filial devotion is indeed commendable." He was unafraid of the potential ridicule. If he were truly so devoted, why had he not brought his family to Yin City in his past life? Choosing instead to remain at odds with them? Ultimately, he had been the one to bear the brunt of their frustrations within the household. Chao Jin had never been one to allow himself to be manipulated, even by his own kin. Yet eventually, he found himself without an heir. He claimed that he must obey his parents' wishes, soothing himself while obediently taking a concubine. What a devoted child, truly moving. Shen Luan's expression of admiration stirred something within Chao Jin, igniting a yearning for her gaze to remain fixed upon him, as if her entire heart were his to possess. Shen Luan was inherently a woman of decorum, placing great importance on filial piety. perhaps due to the early demise of her own parents, which made her even more sensitive to such matters. Therefore, the path to leaving a profound impression on her heart would undoubtedly be a wise one. While deepening his image of filial devotion, Chao Jian subtly sought to comfort Shen Luan. I noticed you appeared somewhat downcast earlier. May I inquire as to the cause? A person such as yourself should have no burdens to bear. At this, Shen Luan inwardly chuckled. Ah, now it was her turn to perform. Her eyes brimmed with tears once more. I merely recalled a sorrowful memory. The affairs of the Shen family were well known in Yin City. Her father was a man of great righteousness, esteemed for his loyalty and talent, even receiving commendation from the current emperor. She ought to feel proud to have such a father. However, I can understand your sorrow. If it were possible, you would surely wish for your parents to be by your side, guiding you as you grow. These past years must have been quite challenging for you. Chao Jin's words nearly brought tears to Shen Luan's eyes. Though she managed to hold them back, she quickly turned her head, seemingly wishing to conceal her moment of vulnerability from him. Her profile appeared even more delicate and vulnerable, evoking a sense of pity. Chao Jian felt an involuntary stirring within him, his fingertips trembling, yearning to caress Shen Luan's tender cheek. She was simply too beautiful. How could he have once tolerated Shen Yu's machinations against her exquisite visage? Had her face remained unmarred, he might have hesitated to use her as bait against Qin Gu. Chao Jian gazed at her with rapt admiration, his infatuation evident, the sight captured entirely by the watchful eye of Yu Ji nearby. Miss Shen, just as Chao Jian contemplated what to say next, he was abruptly interrupted by a voiced Luan. What brings you here? Shen Luan turned to find Shen Wenshao standing a short distance away, scrutinizing her and Chao Jian with an assessing gaze. Chao Jian felt a jolt of surprise. What could bring Shen Wenshao here? Shen Luan had already risen to approach him. I came to the back mountain for a breath of fresh air and happened upon young Master Chao. Brother, did you not study at the academy with him? Young Master Chao, what a surprise to encounter you here. My sister and I have come to pay our respects to our late father. So I shall not impose further. Shen Wenshao's tone was devoid of warmth, as he offered a brief nod to Chao Jian before taking Shen Luan away, hardly extending any pleasantries. Chao Jian numbly watched as Shen Wenshao led Shen Luan away. A myriad of emotions swirling within him. He had always held a disinclination for Shen Wenshao, yet the man was undeniably talented. In his past life, he had devised various schemes to court Shen Wenshao's favor. But the latter had persistently remained aloof, gradually aligning himself with the Ninth Prince's faction. However, Chao Jian later realized that despite appearing distant from Shen Luan, Shen Wenshao could not help but worry for his sister. This notion provided Chao Jian with a potential opportunity to exploit, using Shen Luan as bait to manipulate Shen Wenshao on several occasions. He forbade Shen Luan from associating with her brother. And naturally, she complied, leaving Shen Wenshao unaware of the machinations at play. Yet how could he have accompanied Shen Luan to Guanghua Temple? It seemed that during her previous visit to deliver sweet soup, her relationship with Shen Wenshao was not as estranged as he had presumed. Could it be that their sibling bond was actually quite good? Chao Jian instinctively felt discomfort, his gaze fixated on their departing figures. If that were the case, he would need to devise a plan to distance Shen Luan from Shen Wenshao. He wondered if Shen Yu could be of any use. What did you and that fellow discuss? Shen Wenshao casually inquired as they walked. Shen Luan replied truthfully, stating that he had lost a purse and she had offered to help search for it. He possesses some literary talent. Our uncle has spoken highly of him, yet I find his writings overly ambitious and rather calculating. As a young woman, it would be prudent to limit your interactions with him. Shen Luan admired her brother's keen insight, marveling at how accurately he assessed character. If he can see through Chao Jin's facade, my brother is truly remarkable. What business would I have with him? It was merely a chance encounter. I have no interest in scholarly pursuits. Indeed, but you still ought to practice your calligraphy diligently. Must we dwell on calligraphy? Shen Luan pouted, her gaze fixed on the path beneath her feet. Chao Jian, much like in his previous life, approached her with flattery, seemingly still intent on courting her, hoping to leverage the Shen family's influence. This suited her just fine. She had worried that he might change his mind. Should that occur, she would need to devise a strategy for revenge. As long as he remained committed to the course of his past life, it would save her considerable effort. Shen Luan cast a sidelong glance at Yu Ji, pondering how Chao Jian would conspire with Shen Yu next. She was genuinely eager to see how events would unfold. Shen Luan's life was far more comfortable than in her previous existence. With Shen Yu under house arrest, no one came to bother her. After paying her respects to her grandmother and mother each day, she would practice calligraphy and engage in needlework in the courtyard. Occasionally, she would glance at the account books sent from the shop, calculating how long it would be before that batch of paper turned a profit, all while living in leisurely ease. Days turned into weeks, and at last, Shen Yu's confinement had come to an end. She was the first to visit Shen Luan, who was taken aback upon seeing her. "Fourth sister, have you fallen ill? You appear so gaunt. Your face looks frightfully hollow." Shen Yu was acutely aware of her own appearance. Lu Shi had never been one for superficial niceties. Her disdain for Shen Yu had emboldened the servants to neglect her, often serving her cold meals. Shen Ling would come to exert her authority whenever she was displeased, making life unbearable. Shen Yu could hardly bear to recall how she had endured the past 2 months. "Sister, Shen Yu's words were choked by tears, presenting a pitiful sight. "I understand that you have faced hardships too. I have noticed you running to grandmother's side daily, yet you know her temperament. Even if she favors me slightly, she would not retract her orders for my sake. It is my inadequacy that has caused you distress." Shen Luan's expression was one of profound guilt as she gazed at Shen Yu with compassion, relieved that her sister was finally able to move about freely. "I can finally breathe easy." Chapter 60. A capable individual. Shen Luan feigned deep concern, yet she steadfastly refrained from suggesting that Shen Yu ought to be compensated adequately. Observing her sister's behavior, Shen Yu felt hesitant to voice her thoughts, especially since Yu Ji had indeed mentioned that Shen Luan frequently visited their grandmother, albeit with little effect. Why did it seem that Shen Luan was becoming increasingly ineffectual? However, Shen Yu had initially worried that Shen Luan might grow distant, but it appeared that being somewhat foolish was preferable. Look at her. She still treated Shen Yu as she always had, causing her sister to fret. Without hesitation, Shen Yu embraced Shen Luan warmly, as if no previous discord had ever existed. The third sister was well aware that the eldest sister's engagement had been settled. "Oh? I was completely unaware of that." It was commendable that Shen Yu managed to gather such information while remaining restrained. Rumor had it that their aunt was not entirely satisfied, for the fiancé was the son of the vice minister of the Tongshangsi, serving as an inspector, and their aunt deemed his official rank insufficient. Yet, their uncle seemed very approving, so it was unlikely there would be any further changes. With their uncle overseeing the engagement, it was reasonable to assume that no errors would arise. The eldest sister was fortunate. "She was not like the rest of us." "Third sister, what do you think we should do moving forward?" Shen Yu affectionately grasped Shen Luan's hand. "You and I are of similar age to our eldest sister. Yet who among us truly cares about our matrimonial prospects?" "Third sister, I am filled with dread." Shen Luan, suppressing her emotions, withdrew her hand gently, patting the back of Shen Yu's hand in a soothing manner. "What nonsense are you speaking, fourth sister? Your marriage will certainly be managed by our second aunt, and as for mine, mother will also look after its daughters. Why should we worry about such matters?" "Third sister is mistaken. Don't you desire a smooth journey ahead?" "Of course I do. Then how can you entrust such a significant matter to others? Their third aunt was not your biological mother. How could she wholeheartedly manage your affairs?" Shen Luan had heard such words in her past life, and even now, they pierced her heart like daggers. To allow such sentiments to penetrate her heart was truly foolish. Would their mother care for her? Would Shen Yu? Seeing Shen Luan fall silent, Shen Yu assumed she had swayed her sister. "Third sister, I do not intend to frighten you, but as young women of our standing, we ought to consider our futures early to avoid regrets later." Shen Luan murmured with her head bowed, "It should be fine. After all, I am a legitimate daughter of the Shen family. Even if mother is indifferent, grandmother would not neglect me." Shen Yu nearly gasped. Oh, how clever she had suddenly become. Yet, despite her words, the entire city knew of Shen Luan's background, and she feared. Shen Yu's sentence trailed off as she watched the growing panic in Shen Luan's eyes with satisfaction. This foolish girl, blessed with fortune, had enjoyed the privileges of a legitimate daughter in the Shen family for so long, even though she was but a concubine's daughter. But what was most crucial for a woman? It was her marriage. As long as she could surpass Shen Luan in matters of matrimony, as long as her latter years were more splendid than Shen Luan's, what did the past matter? Shen Yu seamlessly shifted the topic to the family scholarship. "Third sister, do you recall those who accompanied our brothers in their studies at home?" I have heard that our uncle holds one of them in particularly high regard, having shared drinks and late-night discussions with him multiple times. How does fourth sister know of this? I have never heard our brothers mention it. You are well aware of second brother's temperament. How could he possibly share such things with you? This is information I heard from second sister. Why would second sister take an interest in such matters? Shinyu laughed lightly. That is of little consequence. Third sister, have you not attended the family studies? What do you think of those individuals? Shinluan furrowed her brow, appearing to ponder seriously before responding. Though I have attended, I have long since forgotten them. Not a single one. Ah, well, that is not entirely true. Shinluan unexpectedly chuckled lightly. They are all young talents, and of course, there are those who left a lasting impression. Precisely. Shin Yu's eyes sparkled as she affectionately nudged Shinluan's shoulder. Third sister, you must confide in me if you have anything hidden in your heart. We are sisters. There is nothing we cannot share. Shinluan merely smiled, her expression shy and demure, yet tightly sealed her lips, leaving no room for a word to escape. Shin Yu understood her sister's nature well and knew it would be futile to pry further. Yet, it no longer mattered. She pressed her lips together, smiling gently, cradling the teacup in her hands, her thumb gliding over its surface. What exquisite porcelain, so refined and delicate, clearly not something an ordinary household could possess. The table was adorned with delicate pastries and fresh fruits, glistening and succulent, rarely seen even at Shen Ling's place, yet Shinluan casually set them aside, often sharing them with the servants. While her own meals were frequently diminished, she must swallow her grievances with a smile. Otherwise, who would advocate for her? Shin Yu felt a surge of jealousy and resentment, relying solely on such emotions to sustain her. She constantly envisioned a day when Shinluan would finally be beneath her. And when that day came, she would revel in it. Years of accumulated envy would find their release. Since third sister chooses not to speak, I shall refrain from inquiring further. But know this, dear sister. Regardless of what you wish to discuss or deliberate, I am always here for you. Shin Yu smiled with unwavering loyalty. I am solely devoted to your well-being. Upon hearing this, Shinluan's smile blossomed even sweeter and more radiant. Elder sister knows well, has always known. Shin Yu was particularly reluctant to return to her own quarters. How delightful it was here with Shinluan. She had food and drink, allowing her a moment of respite. Yet she was unprepared for Shinluan's sudden desire to practice calligraphy. Third sister, what possesses you to engage in such an endeavor? We are but women, and a mere acquaintance with some characters suffices. Why exhaust yourself in this manner? Shinluan furrowed her brow as she spread out the paper, while Ziyin had already taken the initiative to prepare the ink. Please, fourth sister, do not mention it. This is a directive from my brother, and you know well his temperament. Who in the family does not fear him? I dare not defy his wishes. Having spoken, she began to write a character. Her calligraphy already showing signs of improvement compared to the past. It was unclear whether Shin Wenshao had done this intentionally, but the characters he instructed her to copy were not entirely akin to his usual style, possessing an additional grace and pride, which Shinluan found increasingly appealing. Shin Yu gazed at the characters Shinluan had just pinned, incredulous. Is this truly your work, third sister? How can it be that a fool like you could produce such writing? Third sister, second brother has gone too far. How can he impose such difficulties upon you? Alas, I am powerless in this regard. You know my disposition, fourth sister. I have always been fearful of him and dare not refuse. Shinluan sighed helplessly, noticing the shifting expressions on Shin Yu's face, rendering her speechless, and felt a wave of sympathy. Indeed, no one in the family was unafraid of Shin Wenshao. Her brother was truly remarkable. Chapter 61. A proper display. Shin Yu stood by, observing Shinluan as she wrote, and she felt as if she were staring at an unfamiliar figure. With her eyes cast down, her long lashes brushing her cheeks, her countenance serene, she focused intently on the tip of her brush, exuding an air of wisdom and intelligence, akin to a talented woman. This compelled Shin Yu to clench her hands tightly, striving to dispel such an illusion. Third sister, second brother did not previously demand anything of you. Why suddenly impose the task of writing upon you? Have you unwittingly offended him in some manner? I cannot say, fourth sister. You know that I am rather dull-witted and likely angered him without realizing it. Then why not inquire? Second brother is currently preparing for his examinations. As younger sisters, we must not hinder him. Apologizing to him might alleviate his burdens on you. Shen Luan lifted her gaze, her eyes revealing a timid expression. I dare not. If second brother has commanded me to practice, I shall do so until he is satisfied. If you are truly concerned for me, why not inquire on my behalf? Shen Yu. Did she dare? Observing the contorted expression on her sister's face, Shen Luan offered a comforting smile. I merely jest. I would never burden you with my troubles. There is no need for concern. Although it is somewhat taxing, I can endure it. However, Shen Luan expressed that she required a conducive atmosphere for her writing, and with Shen Yu present, she found it difficult to concentrate. Without focus, her practice would falter, and in turn, she would further irritate Shan Wenxiao. Fourth sister, please assist me by returning to your quarters. As always, Shen Luan feigned weakness, and Shen Yu, wishing to maintain her persona, could not insist on staying, reluctantly departing instead. Once Shen Yu was gone, Shen Luan resumed her writing, unfazed by the earlier distraction. Ziyin, please check if the sweet soup is ready. Yuji remains to attend to you. As Ziyin exited, Yuji approached her side to prepare the ink. While Shen Luan wrote slowly, she quietly instructed, do remember not to speak of the encounter with young Master Chao at Guanghua Temple. A flicker of surprise crossed Yuji's eyes. But she promptly assented, rest assured, miss. I shall not utter a word that I trust you, but I simply believe it unwise for others to learn of it. That day, my conversation with young Master Chao was so delightful that I lost track of time. How could I make such a blunder? Shen Luan gently tapped her forehead, reflecting on the words spoken by her fourth sister today. There is no one in this world who considers my feelings as she does. I must ponder this deeply. The young lady thought to herself, it is not in vain that fourth sister came to visit me immediately after her release, neglecting her own affairs just to share any news with me. Indeed, fourth sister is truly considerate. Yuji contemplated for a moment and remarked, Miss, should we not inform fourth sister about this matter? After all, you and that young Master Chao merely exchanged a few words. A faint blush graced Shen Luan's cheeks. It was merely a few words, hardly warranting widespread discussion. Perhaps in the future, in any case, it is best not to disclose this to fourth sister just yet. Seeing her reaction, Yuji chose not to press further. When Ziyin entered with a bowl of sweet soup, Shen Luan had nearly finished her writing. Ziyin collected Shen Luan's work, and as Yuji stepped out to attend to her tasks, Shen Luan leaned against the window, delicately scooping the sweet soup with a small spoon, savoring it sip by sip. During this period, any minor errands outside had been entrusted to Yuji. Shen Luan observed Yuji's radiant demeanor outside the window and took another spoonful of the sweet soup. Its sugary flavor lifted her spirits. Opportunities have been created for you all. It is essential to perform well indeed. Shen Yu did not disappoint Shen Luan's expectations. A few days later, she sent her a lifelike wooden doll. Shen Luan gazed at the doll in astonishment, asking, what is this? Does my sister like it? I heard that you received a doll at Madame Du's banquet and cherished it greatly. This one should be equally delightful. Shen Yu praised the doll as if presenting a treasure, and Shen Luan smiled faintly, realizing that this doll was far superior to the previous one. It was no exaggeration. The exquisite box alone was a sight to behold. And the doll inside was intricately crafted, adorned with several gemstones, a trinket sure to delight any young girl. Upon hearing her words, Shen Yu's smile deepened. As long as my sister likes it, that is enough for me. But I cannot accept it, Shen Luan interjected, raising her hand to stop Yuji from accepting it as an elder sister. How could I be unaware of fourth sister's circumstances? I cannot allow my sister to incur such expenses. It would trouble my heart. Oh, what does it matter? It is merely a trinket. As long as my sister is pleased, I am happy. As Shen Yu spoke, she attempted to hand the doll to Yuji. However, Shen Luan, unexpectedly stubborn, resolutely refused to accept it. I have plenty of such items. One more or one less makes no difference. Yet, this doll must surely be costly for you, dear sister. If I were to accept it and our mother found out, I would be scolded. Shen Luan remained steadfast, her attitude unwavering despite Shen Yu's pleas. Eventually, Shen Yu, feeling desperate, tugged at Shen Luan, exclaiming, dear sister, do consider. How could I afford to gift you something so extravagant? I must confess. This doll was entrusted to me to present to you. Shen Luan's mouth fell open in surprise. Someone sent this to me? Who? Shen Yu smiled enigmatically. Well, why not let third sister guess? How could I possibly guess? Shen Luan's expression grew serious. Fourth sister, it is not that I am reprimanding you, but as women, How could we accept gifts from just anyone? What if others find out? Xinyu replied, perhaps it is better not to try to educate others if one is as foolish as I. She took a deep breath. Third sister, this matter is rather complicated. Xinyu gestured for Shen Luan to allow the servants to leave. Shen Luan instructed Zi Yin to tidy the storeroom but kept Yu Ji behind. For she had always trusted her. Yu Ji smiled loyally. My devotion to the young lady is as steadfast as the heavens bear witness. Xinyu gazed enviously at Shen Luan. I truly envy you, sister, for having such a clever and loyal maid. It is indeed your fortune. Even if fourth sister envies me, I cannot part with Yu Ji. I rely on her too much. The three of them smiled sweetly, as if enveloped in harmony. Now, fourth sister, do tell, whence came this doll? Xinyu bit her lip, appearing somewhat troubled. Well, if I must speak, do not blame me, dear sister. I was quite moved to bring this up. Do you remember that young Master Chao from our Shin family's scholarly lineage? As Xinyu spoke, she scrutinized Shen Luan's expression closely. Upon mentioning Chao Jin, Shen Luan's expression suddenly shifted, as if she were suppressing something, her demeanor becoming quite peculiar. Young Master Chao. I seem to recall him somewhat. Xinyu chuckled internally. What does she mean by somewhat? In my presence, how could Shen Luan still feign ignorance? It is young Master Chao who, having learned of my sister's fondness for dolls, discreetly sought an opportunity to convey his sentiments through me, as he feared to present his gift directly to her. Shen Yu's eyes sparkled with emotion. I was reluctant at first, but young Master Chao was so patient and earnest, repeatedly requesting me to deliver it. I simply could not bring myself to refuse. Shen Luan's astonishment amused Xinyu. She understood Shen Luan all too well. Deeply insecure, she would naturally be taken aback by such straightforward kindness from a man. Third sister, do speak. Have Yuji put away the doll for now? And when you have time, you can admire it properly. Even I find it exquisitely crafted, and I am sure you will adore it. Xinyu signaled to Yuji, but as soon as Yuji moved, Shen Luan grasped her wrist firmly. Fourth sister, I have always regarded you as exceptionally astute. How can you be so obtuse now? Xinyu. Did she just insult herself? Shen Luan lamented. Fourth sister, how can you not perceive such a simple matter? Is this doll truly meant for me? Of course it is. Sister is mistaken. Shen Luan sighed heavily. Do consider. If young Master Chao fancies himself a gentleman and wishes not to startle me, why would he seek you out? Is he not afraid of startling you? Or is he, in fact, a hypocritical scoundrel? Shen Luan gently patted Shen Yu's hand. Our uncle speaks highly of this gentleman. It cannot possibly be the case. Thus, there is but one explanation. He clearly seeks to use my name as a guise to draw closer to you. Fourth sister, how could you not see this? Xinyu froze, perplexed by her words. What was she saying? Shen Luan's expression revealed a hint of melancholy point. One could easily deduce that fourth sister, with her remarkable beauty and charm, would be adored by all. If I am so fond of her, who would not be? I know I cannot compare to my sister. Thus, it is only natural for young Master Chao to harbor such feelings. No, third sister, you have misunderstood. Young Master Chao explicitly stated he wished to gift it to you. Shunyu, recovering from her surprise, urgently clarified. He mentioned that he found you unforgettable at Guanghua Temple and knew of your fondness for dolls. Hence he specifically sought this one for you. Oh dear, fourth sister, how can you not understand? Would he dare to express his feelings directly in front of you? Surely, he must find a pretext. Shen Luan suddenly adopted a sisterly tone. Fourth sister, consider this. How could you possibly be inferior to me? You are clever and charming. Who would not praise you? As for my reputation outside, who would remember me? Shen Luan, well versed in self-deprecation, spoke with such ease that it felt entirely natural to Xinyu. For these were her own sentiments, the very thoughts she had long instilled in Shen Luan. Thus, hearing Shen Luan speak in this manner, Xinyu found herself almost convinced that there was some truth to it. However, Xinyu regarded young Master Chao with disdain. A man who had spent so many years as an editor in the Hanlin Academy seemed unlikely to achieve much in the future. Xinyu chuckled. Third sister, do not jest with me. I am the youngest daughter in the family. How could that be? Precisely because of that, young Master Chao would go to such lengths. Think about it. He must have exerted considerable effort to meet you. If he truly cared for me, why not come directly to see me? Moreover, do you not recognize how I came to possess this doll? It was merely a prize won during an archery contest. Shen Luan lowered her voice, showing great understanding. I did not anticipate that young Master Chow would use me as a pretext to approach you. It seems he had no other means to do so, making it quite thoughtful of him. Shen Yu looked bewildered. Is that truly so? Now that I consider it, my encounters with young Master Chow are indeed puzzling. How did he know I would allow a maid to come and go through the side door? How could he possibly know who my maid is to send her with messages and gifts? How could he be so certain that I would assist him in passing along his offerings? Unless he, too, is uncertain and merely seeks a reason to connect with me, the more Shen Yu thought, the more plausible it seemed, and suddenly, she felt the doll in her hands grow heavy. Shen Luan smiled, her eyes sparkling with delight. I told you, who could resist the charm of a sister like you? The young Master Chow, whom I previously encountered at Guanghua Temple, is indeed a paragon of talent and grace. I never anticipated that he would undertake such a romantic endeavor for the sake of my fourth sister, which truly commands admiration. Shen Yu was flustered. What was the third sister saying? I have nothing to do with him. I understand. Shen Luan winked at Shen Yu. Amused by her sister's agitation, Shen Yu could hardly remain composed. Yet this doll, naturally, I cannot accept it. Such a sentiment should be received by fourth sister. You need not worry, I shall keep this matter to myself. Shen Luan made a gesture of discretion, causing Shen Yu to feel a pang in her heart. Shen Luan resolutely refused, leaving Shen Yu no choice but to hastily depart with the doll. Yuji was perplexed. Miss, at Guanghua Temple, Master Chow clearly enjoyed a lively conversation with you. How could it suddenly? Shen Luan grasped her hand, speaking earnestly. Yuji, though I am your lady, let us be honest. Fourth sister is indeed more astute than I, is she not? Master Chow is an ordinary man. It is only natural for him to be drawn to fourth sister. However, I know what you are thinking, Tio Mi. Master Chow is merely someone who studies with my brothers under the Shun family's tutelage. Our encounter was a mere coincidence, a few exchanged words. I harbor no ill will. My dear Yuji, you are truly considerate. Yuji was rendered speechless as Shen Luan sighed softly. Yet, I fear fourth sister may be at a loss. You must absolutely keep this matter confidential, lest it tarnish her reputation. Rest assured, I shall not speak a word. That is good. Shen Luan displayed a reassuring smile. The following day, Shen Luan visited her grandmother to pay her respects. Grandmother's health had markedly improved of late. When the weather warms further, I shall accompany you outside the city for a stroll. The flowers are blooming beautifully now. Zhang Shi nodded with a smile. Indeed, this old body could use some movement. Grandmother is still youthful, Shen Luan remarked, gently massaging Zhang Shi's shoulders. While the old maid beamed, the third young lady's daily visits lift the old lady's spirits. How could her health not improve? Zhang Shi was indeed in good spirits. Observing that Shen Luan had changed from her former self, this was truly the daughter of the Shen family. Just as the two were enjoying their moment, a maid entered to announce that Lu Shi from the second household had brought Shen Yu, seemingly with pressing business. Chapter 63. Not disappointing her, Zhang Shi's smile faltered. Did they not just receive confinement? What could possibly be the matter? Shen Luan gently reassured her. Perhaps it is not a grave issue. Fourth sister is typically prudent. It may merely be a misunderstanding. There is no need for grandmother to fret. Zhang Shi huffed lightly. Let us hope so. As Lu Shi and Shen Yu were ushered in. Even before seeing them, Shen Luan could already hear Shen Yu's soft, aggrieved voice, thick with tears. Mother, it is truly not as you think. Please, let me explain. Very well. We have come to the old lady to explain. Lu Shi had already pulled Shen Yu inside, the latter weeping openly, a sight that tugged at the heartstrings. Lu Shi wasted no time, presenting an item before Zhang Shi. Shen Luan leaned in for a look, her expression morphing into one of shock and disbelief as she stared at Shen Yu. Lu Shi keenly noticed Shen Luan's reaction and furrowed her brow. Does Luan girl perhaps know something? No, I know nothing at all. Shen Luan's evident avoidance only inflamed Lu Shi's indignation. Indeed, old lady, I come to speak with you about this matter, for I do not wish for anyone to think I unjustly accuse the illegitimate daughter. To avoid future slander, this is a serious issue. I implore the old lady to make a judgment. She turned to point at Shen Yu. This girl has become unmanageable. Though still young, she secretly engages with a man. If this were to spread, what would become of the Shun family's reputation? My linger would be ridiculed. Shen Yu knelt on the floor, tears brimming in her eyes. Grandmother, mother, it is not like this at all. Please, let me explain. What more is there to explain? The evidence is right here. What further explanation do you seek? Zhang Shi was taken aback that this matter implicated the Shin family's daughters, her expression growing increasingly severe. You girl, what do you have to say? Shin Yu was inconsolable, grandmother. It truly is not like this. How could I do such a thing? This doll. She cast a glance at Shin Luan, biting her lip. This doll was entrusted to me by someone else to deliver to third sister. Shin Luan's eyes widened in shock, her expression one of innocence and disbelief, as though she had been stabbed by someone she trusted most. Yet Shun Yu was too frantic to care. What I say is the truth. Third sister, you must speak up. Zhang Shi's gaze fell upon Shun Luan, but the latter's fragile demeanor was genuinely heart-wrenching. Fourth sister, why do you insist on saying this? Is it not enough that you previously implicated me in meeting a man? Now you? Shin Luan covered her mouth, tears of anguish shimmering in her eyes. I have treated fourth sister sincerely. Even when you previously entangled me, I wished not to hold it against you. But why must you persist? Is our sisterly bond truly so fragile, overshadowed by an outsider? The entire Shun household knew of the close relationship between Shinluan and Shun Yue.as Shinluan recalled past events. There were witnesses like Shun Jian and Shun Wanxiao, making it impossible to fabricate. Shin Yu's mind was a whirlwind, but she could not allow herself to be branded with such a crime. Third sister, did I not visit you yesterday? You know where this doll came from. How can you claim otherwise? Shin Luan had knelt before Zhang Shi, her slender back straight, her eyes filled with unending disappointment and sorrow. Grandmother, fourth sister did indeed come to my courtyard yesterday, and I did see this doll, which is why I was so surprised upon seeing it. However, I had sworn to keep fourth sister's secret. I know this is wrong, but out of affection for fourth sister, I found myself unable to choose differently. I beg for grandmother's leniency. With this admission, she essentially confirmed that the doll had indeed been received by Shin Yu. Shun Yu's eyes reddened in desperation. Third sister, what are you saying? Grandmother, if you do not believe me, you may summon the person in question. That person is Chao Jin, who studies at the Shin family's academy. He met with third sister at Guanghua Temple and engaged in pleasant conversation, which is why he asked me to deliver this doll. You may very well bring him here for confrontation. Shin Luan replied unhurriedly, my two brothers can attest. I have only visited the academy once and could hardly name everyone there. That day at Guanghua Temple, I did indeed encounter Master Chao, but my brothers were present as well. Grandmother would know upon inquiry at AS for this doll. Shin Luan lowered her head. Since both fourth sister and I are daughters of the Shin family, why must the delivery of such an item go through a sister's hands? What is there to prevent it from being presented openly? It is merely a doll, nothing scandalous. How did he even come to approach my sister? Are daughters of the Shin family so easily accessible? Having encountered Chao Jin at Guanghua Temple, Shun Luan recognized his unrelenting ambitions. He still sought to marry her, hoping to leverage the Shin family for his ascent. His ostentatious displays before her were merely attempts to win her favor. Thus, Shun Luan feigned casualness as she mentioned the doll from the Du family's banquet, treating it as a jest. She was acutely aware of Chao Jin's tendencies to ingratiate himself, but she was no longer the naive Shin Luan of previous lives, easily swayed into accepting gifts. Luan girl speaks truth. I must say, you girl, your talent for deceit has only grown. How could you smear such a matter onto your sister? If Master Chao truly wished to present something to Luan girl, why would he single you out from so many in the household? Lu Shi's indignation mounted. She had long held a low opinion of Shin Yu. Yet the latter's adeptness at feigning innocence had thwarted Lu Shi's attempts to expose her faults. Now, she had finally caught her in a misstep. Shin Yu continued to weep, insisting her innocence, claiming that Chao Jin had merely asked her to deliver the item, that he was enamored with Shun Luan. Shun Luan's eyes also glistened with tears. Fourth sister, I have no siblings of my own. I have always regarded you as my own sister. What transpired today was not divulged by me. I never imagined you would resort to such. She choked back her emotions, slowly closing her eyes. Is our sisterly bond truly worth less than that of an outsider? Shin Yu felt as though she were losing her mind. What nonsensical things was she saying? Third sister, what are you trying to say? Enough. Zhang Shi could no longer contain her frustration. Are we done with this commotion? You are bringing disgrace upon the Shin family. Having married into the Shin family for years, she had always taken pride in their reputation. Yet now she was forced to endure such absurdities. Go, summon Wen Xiao and Jian immediately. Bring them both here. Chapter 64. Thus it ends. Zhang Shi was evidently incensed, her peripheral gaze occasionally drifting towards Shen Luan. Shen Luan's eyes were perpetually red, her lower lip bitten to a rosy hue, the sorrow and grievance in her eyes unmistakable. Indeed, the girl seldom ventured out of the estate. Nor did she frequent the family school. Even her visits to Guanghua Temple were accompanied by Wen Xiao, a fact Zhang Shi was well aware of. Even at the banquet hosted by the Du family, she was always in the company of Jin Shi, or mingling with the daughters of the Guangyang Marquis. She could hardly believe there was anything amiss with an outsider. Yet, it was right for her to feel distressed. After this incident, she ought to learn to discern people's true natures to avoid being deceived in the future. Zhang Shi's anger rendered everyone cautious, and shortly thereafter, Shen Wanxiao and Shan Jian arrived. Accompanying them was the eldest lady, Yu Shi, who had heard of the affair. What has transpired, old madam? Jian was diligently studying with his tutor. Why summon him here? Yu Shi, preoccupied with her son, upon witnessing the assembly, prudently kept her silence and stepped aside to observe. Shan Jian and Shan Wanxiao stood below, while Zhang Shi's expression was austere. Wanxiao, some time ago, you accompanied Luaner to Guanghua Temple. Did you encounter anyone of note? Shen Wanxiao stepped forward with a composed demeanor. Grandmother, on that day, I encountered a classmate from the family school while I was with a Luan at the back mountain of Guanghua Temple. We exchanged but a few words, and that was all. Lu Shi scoffed, casting a sidelong glance at Shen Yu. Did you hear that? Wen Xiao was present too. Are you still concocting tales about Chao Jin and Luaner? I dare say you are so accustomed to spinning lies. You think a Luan would not expose you? I did not, grandmother. The maid beside my third sister, Yu Ji, can attest to it. She spent considerable time with young Master Chao. Conversing for quite a while, Shen Luan gasped in disbelief. Yu Ji? How could she discuss such matters with fourth sister? Shen Yu ignored Shen Luan's astonishment, weeping pitifully. Grandmother, you might inquire with Yu Ji to see if this is true. Today, accompanying Shen Luan to Zhang Shi's was Xian, whose astonishment mirrored that of Shen Luan's. After a moment, she quietly reported, Miss, Yu Ji left the courtyard early this morning and did not mention her destination. Shen Luan candidly informed her grandmother, prompting Zhang Shi to furrow her brow. You mean to say you do not know where your own maid has gone? I usually do not keep her on a tight leash. Yu Ji is quite capable, and I have always placed my trust in her. Previously, when fourth sister was confined, it was thanks to her that I learned of fourth sister's situation. I assigned her the various tasks around the courtyard. She must have been diligently attending to her duties. Shen Luan's explanation was tinged with urgency as she sought to defend her maid. Yet her words elicited subtle expressions from many present. Lu Shi sneered. So, she is indeed quite capable, managing to maintain contact with you even during her confinement. Is she your maid or hers? Shen Luan's cheeks flushed slightly. Second aunt, fourth sister must indeed be quite fond of Yu Ji. Having praised her numerous times, it is likely that Yu Ji is simply likable. In the inner quarters, the several ladies and the matriarch were all too aware of the underlying dynamics. Even Yu Shi could not help but feel sympathy for Shen Luan. With an outsider's informant infiltrating the courtyard, it was no wonder Shen Yu would so brazenly cast blame upon her. Shen Yu relied on Zhang Shi to summon Yu Ji for questioning, believing the maid would provide detailed testimony to corroborate her claims regarding Shen Luan's alleged impropriety with Chao Jin. Yet, to her surprise, Zhang Shi did not pursue this course of action. What value do the words of a servant hold? She declared. Wen Xiao, were you not with Luaner the entire time at Guanghua Temple? Shen Luan's heart raced, yet she did not panic unduly. She had already devised her response. Even if she had not been in the company of her brother, it did not imply any untoward connection with Chao Jin. Shen Wanxiao maintained his usual aloof demeanor, betraying no emotion. As soon as Zhang Shi's inquiry fell, he nodded with remarkable composure. Yes, I remained with a Luan throughout. Grandmother, what do you mean by suggesting a Luan spent considerable time alone with Chao Jin? Such idle gossip, from whence does it arise? Zhang Shi sighed lightly. You need not concern yourselves with such matters. Focus your energies on your studies instead. I have grasped the situation at hand. She straightened her posture. The Shen family established the family school to encourage your diligence, yet it appears other matters have arisen. If that is the case, it would be better to cease the school for now. You and Jian may quietly study alongside your tutor. Shen Jian and Shan Wanxiao raised no objections, and Zhang Shi subsequently permitted their departure. Shun Luan's gaze lingered on Xian Wanshao as he left, his demeanor perpetually calm and collected, which made him particularly intimidating. No one would doubt the veracity of his words, "Brother, you have fabricated a false alibi for me." If not for her own awareness, she might have been unable to discern this. Thus, she pondered whether her brother's previously composed assertions held any truth at all. Perhaps her own lack of insight had obscured the reality. Shun Luan sighed inwardly, while Shun Yu could no longer contain herself. "Grandmother, I did not deceive you. It is true. Third sister truly spent time alone with Chao Jian at Guanghua Temple. Yuji knows all about it. You should summon her to clarify." This time, Lu Shi remained silent, but Yu Shi's voice rang out sharply. "Do not speak another word. We are all daughters of the Shin family. Do you wish to tarnish your sister's reputation?" She continued, "How could someone else's maid share such intimate details with you? Do you honestly believe anyone would take your word for it?" Yu Shi felt a surge of anger towards Shin Yu. The engagement of Shin Qing had only just begun to show promise. If further gossip about the Shin daughters emerged, who could predict the ensuing chaos? "Are you implying that Wen Xiao's words are less credible than those of a mere maid?" "I say, even if that were the case, such a gossipy maid who does not protect her own mistress ought not to remain." Lu Shi rolled her eyes. "Who knows what trouble such a maid might cause in the future?" "Old madam, this matter has left Luaner feeling quite wronged. Having been unjustly sullied, it is also my fault for not properly educating you. Fearing others might accuse me of mistreating a concubine's daughter, I have refrained from being too strict." Zhang Shi, fiddling with the beads in her hand, pointed at Lu Shi, acknowledging the truth of her words. "If you choose to keep someone by your side, you must ensure they are well guided, lest they cause mischief later on. Your teachings are wise, old madam. I shall certainly impose stricter discipline henceforth." Shun Yu's heart sank. Her days in the Shun household would likely become all the more arduous. With her gaze lowered, the seemingly insignificant incident had escalated to the point where, if it were to be handled with due formality, a mere token of gratitude would suffice. Yet now, she was compelled to receive punishment and drag others down with her. You are to kneel in the ancestral hall today and reflect upon your actions." Chapter 65. Of course Shin Yu collapsed to the ground, utterly devoid of support within the Shin family. Instinctively, she glanced towards Shin Luan. Shun Luan's beautiful brow furrowed. Upon meeting her gaze, she averted her eyes, seemingly reluctant, yet offering no plea on her behalf. The struggle in her expression made it appear as if she had reached the depths of disappointment. In that moment, Shin Yu realized that her relatively comfortable life in the Shin family had been a consequence of Shin Luan's influence. Each time, it was she who assisted her, providing for her needs, allowing her to lead a fulfilling life. But now, Shun Luan was unwilling to help her. "But I spoke the truth, that child. It was Chao Jin who gifted it to Shun Luan. Why does no one believe me?" Shun Yu was taken to the ancestral hall, where Zhang Shi commanded Shun Luan to kneel before everyone. Shun Luan obediently complied, lowering her head, her slender figure appearing fragile and vulnerable. "Do you understand your mistake? Granddaughter understands her error, and what, pray tell, is that error?" Shun Luan stammered for a moment, unable to articulate a coherent response. Nonetheless, her attitude remained exceptionally amiable, simply acknowledging her wrongdoing. Zhang Shi sighed heavily, ultimately reluctant to punish her, and permitted her to rise. "The maids by your side should be devoted to your protection, yet you have neglected your responsibilities, failing to manage even those closest to you. How will you govern a household in the future?" Zhang Shi pursed her lips. "That Yuji is no longer suitable for you. I shall have someone handle it. You may select a more trustworthy maid to take her place. You possess a gentle disposition and prefer to avoid conflict. Among the several young ladies in the house, you are the quietest and most trouble-free. Yet at times, you must remain vigilant and not assume that everyone around you is well-intentioned." Shun Luan's emotions were visibly subdued, and Zhang Shi chose not to retain her further, allowing her to return with the others. Upon exiting the courtyard, Yu Shi regarded the day's events as a mere farce, intending to return and inquire about the true circumstances when Shen Luan caught up with her from behind. "Aunt, may I speak with you for a moment?" "Luaner, you may speak freely." Shen Luan's expression was shy. "Today, grandmother disbanded the family school. It was under uncle's direction. He will surely question the reason. So aunt, please do not elaborate too much to uncle." "Why is that?" Uncle expressed considerable admiration for that Master Chow. However, now that he has incited grandmother's ire, I find myself wishing for two things. Firstly, to spare Uncle from self-reproach, and secondly, to prevent him from confronting Master Chow, as it would tarnish the reputation of my fourth sister. Madam Yu smiled gently. Our Luan is truly kind-hearted and considerate, I understand. It is commendable that you still think of her despite Yuelan's behavior. Fourth sister. Perhaps she was merely momentarily confused. She has always treated me with utmost kindness. Upon seeing her acquiesce, Shen Luan performed a hurried bow and took her leave. The tender smile on Madame Yu's face gradually morphed into a teasing grin. How could such a clever man as Shin Yuanxiu have a daughter like this? To put it charitably, one could call her innocent. To put it bluntly, she is foolish, and I cannot help but wonder how much she will suffer in the future. Upon returning to her own courtyard, Shan Luan found that Yuji's belongings had vanished, likely collected by grandmother's servants. Xian, fearing for her mood, did not dare to disturb her and allowed her to rest alone in her chamber. After sitting for a while, Shen Luan suddenly found it hard to remain still. After some contemplation, she moved to her writing desk, spread out paper, and began grinding ink. Given Shan Wenxiao's temperament, today's events would certainly not be brushed aside. He might very well summon her for questioning tomorrow. Shen Luan resolved to write several pages, uncertain if it would suffice to deceive him. After writing for a while, the faint sound of Yuji's crying and wailing reached her ears. Shen Luan peered out the window, discovering that Yuji had not even entered the courtyard and was being blocked at the gate, seemingly wishing to see her. Shen Luan lowered her head, steadily continuing her writing, producing a beautifully executed stroke. Yuji was not a child born into the family and had no one to look after her. Shen Luan prided herself on treating her well. Yet, the girl could not help but harbor aspirations of grandeur. Whatever Shen Yu had promised her, it must have been something remarkably compelling to inspire such risk-taking. Shen Luan recalled that Yuji had an older brother who was already married. His wife had visited the residence twice, and each time had appeared to be in a foul mood, suggesting that she was not easy to get along with. Since Yuji seemed unwilling to remain in the household, why should Shen Luan feel compelled to keep her? Miss. Yuji's voice grew fainter until it was no longer audible, yet Shen Luan did not reveal herself. After some time, she stopped writing once she had produced several satisfactory characters and called for Xian to come in. Xian brought a basin of warm water for Shen Luan to wash her hands. Miss, who do you plan to bring in to replace Yuji? Let it remain empty for now. Have someone take a small blanket to the ancestral hall. Xian's face was filled with astonishment. Miss, fourth Miss has treated you so poorly, and you still wish to concern yourself with her? Her face flushed with indignation. Shen Luan dried her hands and gently pinched Xian's cheek. Do you believe your young lady is one to bear grudges? Xian hesitated, still feeling aggrieved on her behalf. Miss, you are far too kind-hearted. Enough, go now. Xian pouted as she left, and Shen Luan applied a touch of fragrant balm to her hands, gently rubbing it in. Silly girl, your young lady is indeed one who harbors grudges. Especially in matters of deep-seated enmity, how could a mere kneeling in the ancestral hall suffice to resolve them? Shen Luan, now with fragrant hands, leaned back in her chair and slowly revealed a faint smile. She must become Shen Yu's sole lifeline if she were to personally send her to hell. That evening, upon learning that the family school was to be dismissed, Shen Yuenda immediately sought an audience with the old matriarch. Madam Yu grasped his arm. My dear husband, do not go. The old matriarch is in a terrible rage today. If you go, it would be akin to seeking rebuke. I must inquire why. How can such a good plan be so suddenly abandoned? Oh, this matter. Madam Yu had already discreetly gathered information and found it almost laughable. However, recalling Shen Luan's words, she suppressed her desire to elaborate and offered a vague explanation. It is somewhat related to you. That highly esteemed Master Chao Jian sent a doll to Yuelon, which displeased the old matriarch. Hence, the family school is off. It would be just as well for us to study quietly at home. Shen Yuenda was momentarily stunned, never having anticipated such a turn of events. You mean to say that Chao Jin's actions regarding Shen Yu? Oh dear, my husband, do not pry further. The old matriarch's decision will not change. With Qing Jie's wedding impending, we cannot afford to create trouble at this juncture. I believe this is for the best. Madam Yu changed the subject, but Shen Yuenda spent the night restlessly. The family school had been his initiative, and its cancellation naturally fell to him to address. The other matters were manageable, but it was the heir of the Guangyang Marquis that he needed to placate. Only concerning Chao Jin, Shen Yuenda's emotions were complicated. The following day, he specifically sought out Chao Jin. He first praised his talents before broaching the subject of the family school. Chao Jin was taken aback. Not proceeding. What is the reason? How shall I phrase this? Chao Jin felt a sudden apprehension, wondering if this was due to his association with Shen Luan. If that were the case, it might afford him an opportunity. The Shen family's principals have always emphasized propriety, especially concerning the young ladies. The matriarch held their decorum in high regard. You must be cautious. Chao Jin clasped his hands. Lord Shen, I admit I have acted inappropriately. I simply could not restrain myself, and I did not intend to involve Miss Shen in this. It is entirely my fault. Shen Yuanda waved his hand. It is not a significant matter. It is merely that Yuelon may have been overly frightened and inadvertently linked this to another girl. The old matriarch was angered and has sent her to the ancestral hall for reflection. However, you need not worry excessively. Once her anger subsides, this matter will pass. Yuelon? Chao Jin asked. Lord Shun, forgive my bluntness. But what exactly is happening? I cannot say for certain. In any case, I merely wish to remind you that although Yuelon is a concubine's daughter, she is still of the Shen family. In the future, do not act so recklessly. Chao Jin was astonished but dared not voice further objections, as he desired Shen Yuanda's goodwill. Yet, he could not comprehend how this had turned into a matter concerning Shen Yu. What connection did this have with her? Could it be that his impulsiveness had led Shen Yu to misunderstand something? Xian was particularly sympathetic toward Shen Luan early that morning. Miss, you did not sleep well last night. Did you? There are dark circles under your eyes. Shall I summon a doctor to prescribe some calming herbal medicine for you? Shen Luan looked at herself in the mirror, surprisingly pleased with her appearance. No need. It was merely a restless night of nightmares. If I call a doctor, grandmother will grow anxious. Shen Luan stood up. Bring me a different outfit, the one with the hydrangeas and silver trim that the embroidery shop just delivered. Xian hurried to find it and assisted Shen Luan in changing. Miss, you look exquisite in this attire. The matriarch will surely be delighted to see you. Put these 2 hairpins on me. Shen Luan selected 2 exquisite hairpins from her jewelry box. Both newly crafted and beautifully designed. Xian's eyes held a hint of confusion. Miss, you seldom care for your appearance nowadays. It is quite unusual for you to be so particular about your clothing and accessories today. Shen Luan gazed at her reflection, lightly touching her cheek. Though somewhat haggard, her beauty remained undiminished, perfectly aligned with Chao Jin's preferences, delicate and unthreatening. Have you gathered any news regarding the family school? Are you inquiring about the family school? I have heard that several have already left the residence. The elder master is currently conversing with Master Chao. Why do you wish to know? Nothing in particular. I'm simply tired of staying in the courtyard. I shall take a stroll around the estate. You need not accompany me. Shen Luan exited the courtyard alone, leisurely admiring the scenery and flowers, eventually nearing the estate's entrance. Miss Shen? Hearing someone call her from behind? A glimmer of excitement flickered in Shen Luan's eyes before she masked it, slowly turning around. The moment she glanced back, Chao Jin felt as though his heart had been struck. Such exquisite beauty had not yet been claimed as his own. As if he had lost a fortune of 1,000 taels. Seeing it was Chao Jin, Shen Luan's face registered a moment of panic, and she hurriedly attempted to evade him. But Chao Jin would not allow it. He quickly stepped forward. Miss Shen, please wait. After today, I shall not be able to frequently visit the Shen residence, and I wish to bid you a proper farewell. Shen Luan turned her head away. What is there for Master Chao and I to bid farewell? Please take care of yourself in the future. If Master Chao has any messages for 4th sister, I can assist you with that. Chao Jin's gaze remained fixed on Shen Luan's stunning face, his eyes reflecting a subtle fatigue. Could it be that this was due to him? Chao Jin's heart surged with joy, though his demeanor remained solemn. Miss, you must be mistaken. I have no dealings with your sister. I merely, Master Chao, please choose your words carefully. Shen Luan promptly interrupted him. Regardless, Master Chao should not speak of such matters with me. 4th sister is still kneeling in the ancestral hall. She has always been frail, and this time she has suffered greatly. We have shared a deep, sisterly bond since childhood, and seeing her in this state pains me greatly. Shen Luan quickly cast a fleeting glance at Chao Jin before lowering her gaze. I merely hope that after you depart from the Shen family school, your future may be bright. Once you achieve success, you will surely ascend to greatness. Having spoken, she hastily moved aside, while Chao Jin's gaze remained glued to her retreating figure until she paused at a distant moon gate. Turning back as if to glance at him once more, that moment, Chao Jian felt as though his heart were overflowing with warmth, like a spring rising to its fullest. She must have come specifically to see me off, right? Even if she misunderstood my feelings for Shunyu, she still came to accompany me for a while. Such innocent and naive Shen Luan makes Chao Jin ache with desire, longing to embrace her openly and shower her with affection. Chao Jin suppressed the surging emotions within him, clenched his fists tightly, and reluctantly withdrew his lingering gaze as he left the Shan residence. The Moon Gate. Shen Luan had completely concealed her emotions. Her eyes filled with coldness, and the smile at the corner of her mouth had turned mockingly sarcastic. Chao Jin must be quite pleased, and he could hardly suspect anything, but she could not allow his thoughts to settle. Shen Luan let out a soft huff and rolled her eyes, intending to return, but was startled to find someone standing behind her. The heir? Qin Gu withdrew his scrutinizing gaze and chuckled lightly. Wasn't it enough for you to call me Qin Gu comfortably? Why have you suddenly become so distant? Could it be that you no longer deem me worthy of being your elder brother? Shen Luan gasped internally, realizing she couldn't brush it off, so she reluctantly called out once more, Qin Gu, that's more like it. Why are you here all alone, without even a servant in tow, just taking a stroll? No need for someone to attend to me. Are you planning to return to the manor, Qin Gu? Then I shan't delay your time. Before she could finish her sentence, Qin Gu sighed. I originally came to the Shun residence for my studies, intending to diligently follow my teacher, but unexpectedly, my studies were suddenly cancelled, and I am at a loss as to who you happen to know the reason. I do not know, Shen Luan replied succinctly. As a young lady, how could I possibly know so much? However, even if Qin Gu did not attend the studies, he is already well-read and his talents are enviable. Oh, is that what you think? What makes you say so? Shen Luan. She was caught off guard. Wasn't her earlier comment a clear compliment? Why was he asking for further clarification? Yet, since Qin Gu had inquired, if she chose not to respond, would it not render her praise utterly insincere? Shen Luan's mind raced, and she was not entirely speaking out of turn. In her past life, Qin Gu had indeed been hailed as a paragon of both martial and literary prowess, shining brightly in the court and receiving numerous accolades from the emperor. But those things could not be mentioned now. T is merely how I feel in my heart. Shen Luan's face flushed with a hint of pink. In her previous life, Qin Gu would never have allowed their atmosphere to become so awkward, and she couldn't fathom what had changed now. Chapter 67. Always available, is that so? That indeed makes me feel even more pleased. Qin Ji's light laughter felt as close as a whisper, and Shen Luan kept silently pleading in her heart for him to leave. She felt at a loss as to how to position her limbs. Very well, it is quite windy here, and you are dressed so lightly. You should return quickly. Shen Luan's eyes lit up, and just as she was about to greet him and take her leave, unexpectedly, Qin Gu raised his hand and gently adjusted a hairpin that had gone askew in her hair. It was slightly off, but it looked quite lovely. His hand, with its distinct knuckles, moved in slow motion before Shen Luan's eyes, and she could even see the calluses on his palm from practicing martial arts. The rough texture seemed to explode in her mind, swirling and pulsating, causing her blood to rush. Shen Luan's breathing quickened, and she couldn't even manage a proper farewell. She merely nodded at Qin Gu and ran off, lifting her skirt without looking back. Qin Gu turned to watch her figure disappear behind the door. Unable to contain the smile that crept across his face, she blushed again, and it truly was a beautiful sight. Xiao Wu observed his master's expression gradually losing control and calmly remarked, "My lord, if you continue to smile like that, others will take you for a lecher and will keep you at arm's length in the future." Qin Gu instantly straightened his expression. Am I laughing? Quite lewdly, I must say. Qin Gu pretended to kick him, but Xiao Wu nimbly dodged. He was also aware of why the Shin family's studies were cancelled. Several young ladies of the Shin family had reached the age for marriage, and the heir's unusual treatment of the third young lady, Shen Luan, could not be overlooked. Qin Gu shot him a sidelong glance, and Xiao Wu, undeterred, continued, "But my lord, I noticed the atmosphere between Shen Luan and that Chao Jin was rather subtle. Perhaps she looks down on you. If your eyes are not in use, they can be given to someone in need." Qin Gu resumed his previous demeanor and walked outside, instructing someone to investigate this Chao Jin in detail and report back. As Shen Luan turned, the mockery and coldness in her eyes had yet to dissipate, and Qin Gu noted it all. How could she possess such emotions? It was as if her earlier interactions with Chao Jin were a deliberate ploy, weaving a web for others to fall into. Quite surprising indeed. Shun Luan dashed away from Qin Gu, only pausing to stop against a wall once she was certain she would not be seen, drawing coolness to alleviate the heat coursing through her body. Truly, what a twist of fate. Had it not been for the complete absence of his former aura, she might have suspected that Qin Gu had also been reborn. But that seemed impossible. If that were the case, based on her understanding of Qin Gu, he would never coexist peacefully with Chao Jin. Wait, what do I even know about Qin Gu? Shen Luan let out a soft whimper, closing her eyes in frustration. All she wanted was to repay her blood debts. Could Qin Gu not constantly disrupt her thoughts? Shen Luan shook her head, attempting to shake off the image of that hand that had lingered in her mind. But it only became clearer by the time she finally returned to the courtyard. Xian was startled to see her. Miss, what happened? Why is your face so flushed? Have you caught a chill? I am fine. I merely walked a bit far and got a little warm. Xian breathed a sigh of relief. That is good. The young master Wan Xiao sent word, requesting you to visit him whenever you have the time. Shen Luan's heart sank. The impression of Qin Ji's hand faded somewhat. But what did the messenger say it was regarding? Nothing in particular. Just that, young master Wan Xiao is free all day today and wishes for you to come by at your convenience. Shen Luan. A wave of foreboding washed over her. What was meant to come would inevitably arrive. She trudged heavily into the house. I understand. I will go shortly. Could she write a few more beautiful characters to salvage the situation? Shen Luan deceived herself into lingering for a while before ultimately giving up, with the characters she had been practicing for the past few days and a freshly made pouch in hand. Shen Luan walked with a heart full of trepidation towards Shen Wanxiao's courtyard. Without the studies, Shen Wanxiao and Shan Jian's courtyard should be the quietest place in the family, where no one dared to disturb them. Upon arriving at the courtyard gate, she still held on to the hope that Shan Wanxiao would be too engrossed in his studies to meet her. Third young lady has arrived? The young master said if you come. There is no need to announce yourself. Just go in. Shen Luan. Is my brother still preparing for the imperial examination? Why is he so free? Shen Wanxiao's writing desk was by the window. And from the moment Shan Luan stepped into the courtyard, he had seen her through the crack in the window. Shan Luan walked at a pace no faster than an ant, and perhaps feeling emboldened by the lack of onlookers in the courtyard. Her facial expressions changed rapidly, indeed quite a spectacle. Shen Wanxiao chuckled softly, gently setting down his brush. Now you know to be afraid. No matter how slowly Shan Luan walked, the courtyard was still this small, and she eventually found herself standing before the door. Taking several deep breaths, she finally gathered the courage to knock when Shan Wanxiao's voice called out from inside, "Come in." All her newfound courage instantly dissipated. Upon entering the room, Shen Luan walked with familiarity to the writing desk, observing Shen Wanxiao's inscrutable expression, and swiftly pulled out the characters she had practiced. These are my recent exercises. I have practiced a bit more and feel much calmer than before. Brother, please take a look and let me know if there is anything that needs improvement. Shen Luan earnestly placed her writing before Shen Wanxiao, but upon seeing his continued silence, she quickly produced the pouch. Previously, I noticed your old pouch had worn out, so I took the liberty of making you a new one. I do not know if you will like it. The exquisite pouch was carefully placed on the table's edge, and she had no other tricks left to play. Shen Wanxiao finally moved, first picking up her characters and silently examining them for quite a while before setting them down to take up the pouch. The writing showed some progress, and her needlework was commendable, quite presentable. Shen Luan's heart leaped with joy, but the next moment, she heard him say, however, your wit still needs sharpening. Otherwise, you would not repeatedly find yourself slandered. Shen Luan's face fell, and she timidly defended herself. I did not. It has already reached grandmother's ears, and you say there is nothing? Shen Wanxiao did not raise his voice or glare. He merely lifted his brow slightly, and Shen Luan dared not even breathe. What is going on between you and Chao Jin? Between him and me, there is nothing at all. If there is nothing, then why did he send gifts to you through Shunyu? Shen Luan's eyes widened in surprise. How did he know so much? Shen Wanxiao furrowed his brow slightly, and Shen Luan hurriedly replied, perhaps it is because my beauty is unforgettable. He simply could not forget after speaking to me a few times. She stiffened her face, resolved that if Shen Wanxiao lost his temper, she would turn and flee. Surely, he would not resort to physical violence against her, would he? Chapter 68. Still some hope. Shen Wenxiao's expressionless cheeks twitched slightly, and she suddenly let out a soft laugh, unexpectedly amused by your high self-assessment. It would be unwise to belittle oneself unnecessarily and tarnish the family's reputation. So, what led you to engage in such foolishness before? This time, Xinyu couldn't pin the blame on you. Was it merely coincidence? Even without my intervention, could you still evade responsibility? I should be able to, with Yu Ji as a witness to my solitary time with Chao Jian. I can also render her words unreliable. In my past life at the minister's residence, Shen Luan was not entirely without progress. On the contrary, she had to navigate the complexities of dealing with Chao Jin and the concubines he later took. Shen Luan's understanding of the intricacies of the inner quarters was arguably more profound than that of others. However, making Shen Yu's words untrustworthy would be a trivial task for her. Yet, perhaps in Shen Wenxiao's heart, her own image was destined to be irretrievable. Shen Luan felt a tinge of regret. She had hoped to reconcile with Shen Wenxiao, but it seemed unlikely. Not so. You have not developed feelings for Chao Jin? Shen Luan was momentarily taken aback, instinctively shaking her head. How could that be possible? Then that is settled. I have no affection for this person either. My intention in bringing you here was merely to caution you. As a young lady, you must possess discernment and refrain from developing a sentimental attachment simply because you exchanged a few words with someone. The daughters of the Shen family should at least have some taste. After concluding her words, Shen Wenxiao tidied the table and picked up her brush to write a few more characters. Continue your practice at home. Do not become complacent over even the slightest improvement. You have a long way to go. Shen Luan, feeling bewildered, responded with an "oh" as she accepted the note, only to realize something was amiss. Is there nothing else you wish to say? That child was intentionally not taken in. My second aunt will surely discover it, and it was also I am not interested in such intricate details. Shen Wenxiao curled the corner of her mouth into a smile. If you were still as you once were, allowing others to frame you without resistance, I would indeed be disappointed. In any case, as long as you do not foolishly fall for another man, there is still hope for you. Are you truly my brother? Shen Luan expressed her soul's confusion. Shen Wenxiao unexpectedly laughed. What do you think? At his smile, Shen Luan felt a wave of cowardice wash over her. She lowered her head, took the new characters, performed a curtsy, and turned to leave. Remaining any longer would be a headache. Shen Wenxiao watched her depart through the window, grasping the exquisite purse in his hand. The materials were of the finest quality, cool and silky to the touch. With delicate embroidery and a simple pattern he favored, he carefully replaced his old purse with this new one before resuming his reading with focus. Shen Yu knelt in the ancestral hall for an entire day and night, a punishment of considerable weight within the Shen family, indicating that the old matriarch was truly enraged. Upon learning that Shen Luan had sent Shen Yu a small blanket for warmth, the old matriarch sighed in resignation, hoping that this child would learn not to trust others too readily after this incident. Old madam, the third young lady is kind-hearted, reminiscent of the late third master. She must be a fortunate person. Let us hope so. When Shen Yu returned from the ancestral hall, her legs were nearly unable to carry her. Lu Shi and Shen Ling showed her no semblance of kindness. Lu Shi had received the old matriarch's admonition to discipline her well. Shen Luan endured a grueling daily routine, either observing rules or embroidering, leaving her no spare moments. Whenever she felt on the verge of a hysterical breakdown, she would reminisce about the leisurely days of the past. Under the pretense of accompanying Shen Luan, she could spend entire days at her side, indulging in various snacks and delicacies. Even when Lu Shi pressed her with questions, she could deflect with tales of Shen Luan's pitiable background, a rationale that would withstand scrutiny before their grandmother. However, now that Yu Ji had also been expelled from the residence, Shen Yu found herself without anyone to relay messages to Shen Luan. A sharp pain pricked Shen Yu's fingertip, a droplet of blood seeping out and instantly staining the embroidery. Oh dear, fourth young lady, what are you to do? The second madam is waiting for the handkerchief you are to embroider. Taking so long on a single piece will only invite ridicule upon the daughters of the Shen family for their clumsiness. The matron disdainfully snatched the embroidery frame from Shen Yu's hands. Shen Yu protested, "Matron, I have not rested at all. My eyes are straining. It is merely a matter of embroidering a few handkerchiefs. One must focus when working on embroidery. The second madam only wishes to help. Fourth young lady, you have been rather restless and careless in your work. and it is the old madam who has instructed the second madam to keep a closer eye on you to prevent future mistakes. The second madam's intentions are well-meaning, and you should be grateful. After finishing her admonition, the matron promptly replaced the handkerchief with a new one. Fourth young lady, you must work diligently tonight to complete it. All young ladies must do the same. Shen Yu felt an overwhelming urge to smash the embroidery frame against the matron's face, yet she dared not. Instead, she could only swallow her frustration and accept the task, biting back the pain in her fingertip as she picked up the needle. She still had a chance. With that blanket Shen Luan had gifted her, she could rely on Shen Luan for a turnaround. Just wait a little longer. Once Shen Luan's anger subsided, and she endured a bit more hardship, as long as she could meet Shen Luan, she was certain she could evoke the same sympathy as before. However, at this moment, was Shen Luan truly angry? The young lady had discerning taste, and several rumors had already emerged stating that there was a shortage of Xian paper, especially the high-quality kind, which had already sold out in several shops in Yin City. The shopkeeper who returned to the residence was beaming with joy. Our warehouse is brimming with stock. If we sell now, we should be able to make quite a profit. Shen Luan lowered her head to examine the account books, casually remarking, no need to rush. Let us wait a little longer. Common Xian paper can be sold daily in fixed amounts without raising prices. There are many impoverished scholars in Yin City who cannot afford to be delayed in their preparations for the exams. As for the high-end paper used by wealthy families, we can wait a bit longer. When it comes to making money, it must be done beautifully. The two shopkeepers no longer questioned Shen Luan's judgment, promptly agreeing to return and make preparations. The two shops had hoarded the most stock of the high-end paper that wealthy families typically use to showcase their taste, in a market where others lacked supply. Their products would be particularly sought after. They were not short on money and would be more than willing to spend lavishly on ostentatious purchases. Shen Luan calculated the potential profits in her heart, quietly reveling in the thought for a while before sending someone to fetch more paper from the shop. She intended to send some to her two elder brothers as a small token of her affection as their sister. Shen Jian was quite pleased to receive the paper Shen Luan had sent and immediately returned the favor with an exquisite wolf hairbrush and a small seal. While everyone else was paying respects to the old madam, he took the opportunity to express his gratitude to Shen Luan in person. A few of my classmates mentioned this issue, noting a mysterious shortage of paper at home, making it difficult to procure. I was quite worried, but I never expected a Luan to alleviate my urgent need. Now, I can study in peace. Thank you, third sister. Chapter 69. Then let us proceed. Shen Luan hastily returned the courtesy. Elder brother, you are too kind. The futures of you brothers are intertwined with the well-being of our Shen family. It brings me great joy to assist in even the smallest way, as she spoke. Her peripheral vision caught a glimpse of Shen Wanxiao. Elder brother has also gifted me a fine brush and seal. It seems I have gained more than I have given. Shen Wanxiao silently observed Shen Luan, and she promptly turned her gaze inward, thinking it best not to boast. She had not expected Shen Wanxiao to reciprocate in kind. Zhang Shi was quite pleased with Shen Luan's actions, saying, Luaner is correct. Jian and Wenxiao, you should focus on your preparations. The prosperity of the Shen family depends on your shoulders. I hope you will live up to our expectations. Lu Shi found these words particularly displeasing, as there were no male heirs in their branch. Her tone dripped with acidity. Indeed, the exams are fast approaching, and your second aunt lacks the capability to even prepare some paper for you. So all she can do is offer her blessings. Once you achieve success, do not forget about our branch. Zhang Shi's brow furrowed slightly, and Lu Shi, quick to notice, hurriedly added, tomorrow, I will have Linger make 2 pairs of shoes for your brothers as a small gesture. Shen Jian said nothing, but Shen Wanxiao spoke calmly. There is no need to trouble second sister. A Luan has said she will make them for me. Shen Luan? When did she say that? So, after sending paper, she was not only to receive no reward but also to engage in sewing. This brother might truly not be related by blood. Shen Wanxiao's cool gaze swept over her, and Shen Luan subtly pouted, feeling rather aggrieved. As long as you do not mind the quality, that is all that matters. Make sure it is well done, Shen Luan. As the head matron of the household, Yu Shi could not help but inquire about Shen Yu's absence. Why is Miss Yu not here? Lu Shi sighed, that girl. I merely asked her to embroider a handkerchief, and she was reluctant. One moment she complained of sore hands, the next of blurry vision. Not only did she waste several pieces of fabric, but she also claimed she had a headache and could not rise this morning. What can I do, dear sister-in-law? I cannot be too harsh with her, lest it provide others with ammunition. But this girl has indeed been spoiled terribly. What can I do? Yusha shook her head. How is it that you cannot manage the girls in your household? I recall Miss Yu was quite well behaved before. How has she suddenly become like this? Shenluan suddenly spoke up. Second aunt, my fourth sister has always been frail. She has often told me that a woman need not excel in needlework. Perhaps she didn't intend to ruin the fabric. Lu pondered, clicking her tongue a few times. What was it I said? Our Luan girl is simply kind-hearted. Why you girl's needlework is certainly commendable. She actually mentioned such a thing to you? Lu turned to Jean. Third sister-in-law should take the time to teach her properly, lest she becomes a subject of ridicule in the future. Jan touched the sachet at her waist. No need for second sister-in-law to worry. Alwan's needlework is well within my supervision. That's good to hear. However, Luan, do not misunderstand. I have not been harsh with her. I have applied the same standards as for the other young ladies in the household. How could she be so weak all the time? Shenluan anxiously clarified. Speaking candidly, fourth sister said that in the second courtyard, there is no one to care for her, and without a mother by her side. Her plight is truly lamentable. I have even advised her that, despite this, mother treats me exceptionally well, but she insists that mother is not like second aunt. Shenluan hung her head, looking quite despondent. I was at a loss as to how to console her, yet seeing fourth sister often unwell and unwilling to elaborate, I couldn't help but feel sympathy for her. Lu's expression was quite a spectacle. While others bore various looks, you maintained the dignified composure of a head matron, though her lips occasionally twitched, as if she was struggling to suppress her reactions. Jan, meanwhile, concealed her amusement behind a facade of comfort for Shenluan. Shenluan was entirely oblivious to her own words, her concern for Shunyu pure, as though Lu had drawn her out. Lu resented her thoughtless speech, but found it difficult to reproach her. Thus, she could only continue to hold Shunyu accountable for this matter. Upon returning to the courtyard, Jan summoned Shenluan. I have heard of the happenings at the shop. I truly did not expect you to manage it so well. When I first attempted to oversee a shop, I lacked your capabilities. Shenluan felt a bit bashful from the praise. Jean was genuinely pleased. You possess great talent and show no aversion to this work. I thought, since you are currently free, I might teach you more, so you can eventually stand on your own. Thank you, mother. Shenluan eagerly accepted, spending a considerable amount of time with Jean, absorbing much knowledge, and arranging a day to visit the shop where the manager would explain everything to her in accordance with the circumstances. I am delighted to see you transformed from your former self. As a woman, one must avoid narrow-mindedness and lacking personal opinions. It appears there is little cause for concern now. Jean could easily perceive Shenluan's changes. She deftly unveiled the darkness planted by Xinyu, subtly guiding the conversation to ensure that Jean no longer feared Shenluan suffering from Xinyu's influence. Shenluan increasingly felt at ease around Jean, who neither constrained her with rigid rules nor allowed her to run wild. She subtly and effectively guided her, imparting wisdom that, while perhaps trivial in the eyes of the Shin family, was deemed necessary by Jean, who worried it might serve her well in the future. I once wondered why you were negligent in needlework. It seems it was Xinyu who taught you so. Thankfully, you did not heed her words. Jan caressed the sachet at her waist. Your embroidery skills are quite solid. This is excellent. They may not be necessary in the future, but knowing how to do it and being ignorant are worlds apart, and it would be easy for others to mock you. By the way, are you truly going to make shoes for Wen Xiao? Shenluan's expression fell at the mention of this task. Brothers' shoes have always been made by the embroidery workshop outside the estate, and I have never tried. What if I do poorly? That would be quite embarrassing. That is unlikely. Wen Xiao seldom makes requests, and for him to actively ask you to make shoes is quite surprising. Jean chuckled. You two siblings have grown closer recently. This is commendable. In the future, when you marry, having a dependable brother will allow you to hold your head high in your maternal family. Shenluan pursed her lips. Am I really to do it? Yes, indeed. Whatever the outcome, I assure you he will not speak ill of you. Shenluan sighed inwardly. Then I shall proceed. Making shoes was no challenge for Shenluan. She had ample experience from her previous life. In the solitude of the inner chambers, she had crafted countless pairs, her skills praised by Chao Jin. She sent someone to inquire about Wen Xiao's shoe size, and upon their return, the maid brought back some materials. The second young master said he likes this color. He requests you use this for the shoe upper. Shenluan expressionlessly instructed her to set it down. Once the maid left, she hammered the fabric twice, remarking, "It is simply exquisite." Chapter 70. Ambition unbound, she worked swiftly on the shoes, and once completed, she had no desire to look at them again. Directing Xian to deliver them immediately, Xian hesitated. "Miss, what if the second young master refuses them and insists you deliver them personally? Just slip them into his servant's hands and run off. I have made them, and I have no time to deliver them myself. I still need to practice my calligraphy." Xian pouted before resolutely heading out, determined to follow the instructions given by her mistress. Fortunately, there were no complications, and Xian successfully delivered the items. Shunluan then turned her focus entirely to the shop. Jean stated that since she had entrusted her with these two shops, all the earnings would be her private funds. Moreover, as she gradually familiarized herself with the business, Jean would consider assigning her additional shops. Shunluan was reluctant to accept. These were Jin's belongings, her own means of standing independently in the Shin family. How could Shunluan take them? Yet, Jean shrugged nonchalantly. "The shops I brought from the Jean family have already multiplied several times over. Alas, who could have known I possessed some talent in commerce? Besides making money, I know little else." Shunluan couldn't help but chuckle at this. Who wouldn't desire the ability to make money? Jean remarked that the price of expanding the business was an increasing busyness, and she had long wished for someone to share the burden. As it turned out, those were originally intended as Shunluan's dowry, and if she could take charge ahead of time, it would be all the better. Thus, Shunluan quickly became immersed in her work, frequently accompanying Jean outside the estate, and upon returning, she wasted no time, diligently absorbing all she learned from Jean. This was far superior to her previous life of aimless trial and error. Chao Jin's endeavors paled in comparison to Jin's. Chao Jin had not anticipated that her life's work would be laid before Qinggu. There was nothing particularly extraordinary about it. All that was expected was contained within. "Please, young master, review it." Qinggu quickly perused the documents, noting that Chao Jin had come from humble beginnings and had achieved the rank of editor through her own efforts, which was a testament to her family's virtue. The eldest master of the Shin family holds her in high regard. When did this happen? It hasn't been long. The eldest master of the Shin family seems to have suddenly recognized her talents, frequently inviting her to the estate for candlelit discussions. This recent promotion from editor is also thanks to the eldest master. The eldest master has never been one to involve himself in court affairs. For him to exert himself on her behalf indicates genuine appreciation. Yet, having been in the Hanlin Academy together for years, how could they have failed to notice Chao Jin's strengths until now? Qinggu furrowed his brow slightly, tapping his fingers rhythmically on the table. "Young master, there is one more matter. Chao Jin appears to be seeking a bride. However, this is rather normal, as he has reached the appropriate age to establish a family." Qin Ji's gaze sharpened. What sort of bride is he looking for? Strangely enough, the brides he sought were from official families, suggesting that his affections were aimed at someone of notable lineage, hence his cautious approach. Qinggu slammed the booklet onto the table with a sharp crack. He certainly has grand ambitions. "What do you mean, young master?" "Nothing much. His affections must be reciprocated by the approval of others." After dismissing the others, Qinggu slowly approached the bookcase, opened a drawer, and retrieved a charming wooden doll. This was a prize he had won from Qin Shu, collected effortlessly without raising any suspicions. The doll was endearingly plump, its round hands and bright, large eyes reminiscent of Shun Luan's smile. Chao Jin had unexpectedly gained the eldest master's favor, smoothly entering the Shun family's scholarly circle, and by sheer coincidence, encountered Shin Luan at Guanghua Temple. Should Shin Luan accept the gifts he sends her, when Chao Jin comes to propose, it would naturally unfold, with a trusted maid to testify to their amiable conversations and items proving their mutual affection. While some of Shan Luan's reputation may be sacrificed, this match could very well become a certainty. Qinggu tightened his grip, the sound of his knuckles cracking resonating. He had not foreseen that someone would so abruptly set their sights on Shen Luan. As if appearing from thin air with a clear objective and sharp methods, Qinggu gently caressed the doll for a moment before placing it back. "She calls me Qinggu. I cannot accept without reciprocating. I must do something for her." Chao Jian was indeed in search of a bride, and he was growing impatient. "Which young lady from the Shin family are you referring to, sir?" The matchmaker, adorned heavily in makeup, exuded a strong scent of powder that lingered even from several steps away, and she had a penchant for waving her handkerchief. The Shun family is blessed with 4 young ladies, and the engagement of the eldest daughter has been essentially settled. As for the remaining 3 daughters, 2 legitimate and 1 illegitimate, their ages are indeed suitable for courting. I wonder which of them Lord Chao has summoned me to discuss. Chao Jin, with a serious demeanor, responded, "It is the 3rd young lady of the Shin family, Shun Luan." The matchmaker, taken aback, instantly displayed a look of consternation. "The 3rd young lady? Is there anything amiss?" Internally rolling her eyes, the matchmaker pondered whether he was oblivious to the implications of his words. Nevertheless, for the sake of silver, she maintained a patient and tactful explanation. "Lord Chao, the 3rd young lady of the Shin family is quite different from her sisters. Although her father passed away early, the 3rd Master Shun is someone whom even the Emperor praises in Yin City. No one dares to look down upon Xinluan. Even the Marquis of Guangyang often invites her to stay at his residence. And to this day, I have yet to hear of anyone bold enough to seek her hand in marriage." The matchmaker subtly raised her eyes. What audacity did a mere scholar like Chao Jin possess? Yet, he seemed impervious to her insinuations, maintaining a calm tone. She must marry eventually. It is only natural for suitors to come forth as her age is appropriate. You shall go, and I will double your fee. The matchmaker's eyes darted. Though she foresaw failure, the prospect of a doubled reward was too tempting to dismiss. "Very well, rest assured, Lord Chao, I shall do my utmost. However, if you will go, and whether successful or not, I shall not hold you accountable." With such magnanimity from Lord Chao, I dare say the 3rd young lady of the Shun family is indeed fortunate. The matchmaker beamed brightly, waving her fragrant handkerchief as she sashayed away. Chao Jin picked up the doll that had been returned to him, which had cost him a fair sum, adorned with exquisite gemstones. It might yet prove to be a success. Remembering how Shin Luan had come to see him off, a surge of excitement coursed through him. This time, he was determined to leave her with a favorable impression, lamenting only the folly of Shin Yu, who had so ineptly misled Shin Luan into believing that she was the object of his affection. How could she presume to be worthy? As Chao Jin caressed the doll, a fervent desire began to swell within him. He needed to convey his true feelings to Shin Luan, and swiftly, before that other individual arrived in Yin City. Chapter 71. Just say it at present, Shin Luan, aside from awaiting Chao Jin's actions, had devoted herself entirely to business pursuits. Remarkably, at such a tender age, she had not only established her own shop but was also enjoying considerable profits. Inevitably attracting some attention,